so
So I already seconded it.
okay, we'll second it. So, I mean, I think that the intent, and again, I had asked the last time we met that I was looking for something to compromise, to be able to not say, hey, listen, let's throw the baby out with the bathwater on this particular. This gives us the opportunity that if something does come before, for instance, some of the signs that we've talked about, and some of the restrictions that we've talked about, so that if there's somebody does come forward and says, hey, listen, I want a blinking neon sign, and here's the reason why I want a blinking neon sign, then that can be presented through the Zoning Board of Appeals, or through, through the Zoning Board of Appeals, and it's by special permit. So it comes to us, they're going to make a recommendation because it's by special permit. If it's by special permit, it does come to us. No, it doesn't come to us.
So
Okay.
this is where, so I was with you
Yep.
until that point. Because I think the special permit granting authority is the zoning board of appeals.
In this particular case, yeah.
So I think that it's the zoning board, not the council, that would make that
Decision.
Gotcha. Okay.
decision on
This is what
granting the
happens when you
permit.
come in late and you're
I
trying to catch
understand.
up with stuff, so I apologize. So, let me try to make this easy so I don't get myself fall over my tongue here. This gives us an opportunity to deal with some of those concerns that people had in a different manner than them having to go through, for people to have to come up and ask for some kind of variation. This gives an opportunity to do that. And I think I'm hoping that that's what we're looking forward to do, is to have some kind of, I think one of the counselors had asked, they really wanted to know what the process would be for, if they wanted to go up and appeal this, something within this document. So that's just something to look at, and so right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for a vote. I think understandably, go ahead, some questions.
So, help me understand the ramifications if we withdrew the second and waited until we had clarity on whether we need to advertise the modified changes.
I don't think there's any.
Okay.
I don't think there's any. I don't have a problem with it, you finding out what we really need to do. I think it's better.
So I withdraw my second.
Sure, thank you, person. Okay, good. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, because that way, all shall become clear.
Right.
And I don't have to sit here and try to interpret it. And I think there probably will be a lot of questions. I hope so, that there will be some questions. And based on what you're seeing right now, since it is out here, and I did read it through, what I would do is that if you do have some questions prior to that, we can ask for questions from the counselors to please send them to me, and I can get those to the planning department, or you're welcome to go to the planning department. Okay?
Great. Thank you.
Okay?
All right.
Good enough? That took care of one. Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. Woo-hoo-hoo. All right, from the docket of April 18th, 2017, I entertain a motion in accordance with Section 17-10.15, registered marijuana dispensary uses, and Section 17-9.4. Oh, and before you leave, thank you all for everybody for coming in. And hopefully we'll see you again at the public hearing, or whatever we have to do, okay? I'm sorry?
Tax split.
Oh, okay, all right. Excuse me. I entertain a motion in accordance with Section 17-10.15, registered marijuana dispensary uses, and Section 17-9.4, standards for granting permit. The council hereby approves a special permit with conditions to BCWC, Bristol County Wellness Center, Inc., 679 Washington Street, Suite 8, Box Number 117, South Attleboro, Mass., to operate a registered marijuana dispensary at the property located at 34 Extension Street in Attleboro. See attached special permit decision. So.
Second.
Thank you. So what we did find out is I didn't have to read that whole big special permit thing that you got there, because what happens is, the way it's written to come out in a vote to the actual council. All we have to do here is say that we're going to allow it to go to the next step, which is to go to council. So do you have any questions? Anybody have any questions?
Just a comment. Yes, we talked about this last week, and thank you for holding it and getting the clarity on that, because we don't want to have to do it again. But I think if it's not your intention tonight, which I'm okay with because I've read the conditions, but I just want to make sure that you will have to read all those conditions into the record
Yeah.
when the hearing, when it comes before the full council, so that the public is aware of what those conditions are at the time of granting the permit. So I think that's, I know what we're doing tonight because we have to do each one individually when we get to the full council, but I think as part of the motions at that time, it'll be important to make sure the conditions are read as well.
Absolutely, and since all the counselors now have the opportunity, I mean, it's hard, especially to come in on one night to say to everybody, okay, let's vote on this. So this now also gives everybody the opportunity to take a look and to see what the conditions were. And I did bring it up the last time, that if anybody did have any questions, to please get those to me, and I'll say that again. If you have any questions, concerns, please get those to me, because you do have this document now. I did get a question from the chief of police, and he was asking about the host community agreement. The other thing I will also make sure is everybody has an opportunity to look at that host community agreement one more time also, because that does, once we activate this, that activates the host community agreement, and I think that's important that people understand the connections between those two things. So we did have a host community agreement that we signed with Bristol County Wellness Center, that if they did get their permit and they did start operations, that there would be some percentage of their sales plus some other things. And so we really want to make sure that everybody has that copy too. Okay, so does anybody have any questions? Yes.
I do. So I will send this to you in an email as well, or I'll send it to Linda to send to you. So when so I'm paying pretty close attention to this because this is our first one, and I would like our first one to go the way the first one should go, so it sets the tone and parameters for the subsequent ones that come into the city. And I was reading the marijuana ordinance that actually Mr. Cooper created and that we have worked on through, and there was one section of it that I have a little bit of a concern if you would give me a little bit of leeway, and then I will, again, like I said, we can discuss this at another time, but I think this is important, and maybe I could get some feedback here as well. It says standards for the granting of a special permit in addition to special permit requirements contained in 17-9 special permit. No special permit may be granted hereunder for a registered marijuana dispensary use unless all of the following standards are satisfied. No registered marijuana dispensary shall be located within the following designated areas. The distance between the registered marijuana dispensary and uses cited below shall be measured in a straight line without regard to intervening structures from any parcel line of the real property on which the registered marijuana dispensary is located or to be located to the nearest point on a parcel line of the real property referenced herein. A, 100 feet from any residential zoning district. Not how it's used, but the district, as it is classified as a district. And where it's currently being proposed, it is not being utilized as a residential zone. It's not being utilized for residential, but it is a residential zoning district. So, like that very first one, that would be, the way it's written here in black and white, it would be a no, because that's a resident. It's not whether or not it's close to, but I spoke with a couple of different people about this as well, so.
Well, we have, I mean, Gary is here.
So again, the same thing, I mean, he can come, I expect that he could come and clarify, but again, the public hearing with regards to this has been closed. And so I've done some research with regards to this, and so that's where my question lies, is that it's a residential zoning district. It may not be, the use may not be residential, which is what we're looking at it and making it seem like it's okay because it's not houses. But it's zoned residential. So right there, number one, right out the window. So that's what, I know that we've had other conversations. I'm sorry? No, it's abutting. It's that building may be zoned industrial, but the land line between the industrial parking lot and Stony Lee, that's residential.
So let me tell you how this is done. All right, just so you know what the process goes through, and I get your question. So what happens is when a person puts in for a letter of non-opposition, the inspector looks at that, and they go through this and make sure that all the criteria.
Which inspector?
Our building inspector.
Do we have a letter from Bill stating that it applies to all of the A through F on this? Do we have a letter
Yes,
from
it's
him?
gone through, yep, every one of the department,
We don't have a letter.
every one of the department heads has looked at this, and Gary has gotten information from every one of those department heads. So
So if you, my
if you can
apologies.
send it to me,
Sure,
and
happy
I'll
to do so.
send it to Gary,
But
and I'll send it to Bill.
If I may, it's my understanding we don't have a letter stating that, and, you know, it's what's here in black and white. It could be interpreted different, it might be interpreted different by the state, but what's here in black and white is district, not use, and that's a zoning, that's a residential
Send it to me.
district, so.
Yep, send it to me, we'll figure it out. Thank you. Hi.
Madam Chair, when I was on the Zoning Board of Appeals, we would routinely issue decisions like this. And in the case of this technicality that Council Preakers brought up, the zoning board had the right to grant a variance. And it was a rare thing to grant a variance, but when 3 of the 5 members of the zoning board that were assigned to the case felt that it was an extenuating circumstance. It just didn't make sense to enforce the laws the way it was written, that they could grant a variance. But I think a variance needs to be applied for. And so if this is, if what I heard is correct, that the standards for granting the marijuana is that the lot line cannot be abutting a lot line of a residential zoned area. District, then the council can still grant the license with a variance. But we might want to run that through legal, through the president,
Yep.
through legal, to see whether or not we can grant a variance from our own ordinance when we grant the permit. And that concludes my comments.
Yeah, good. Yep, thank you. Nothing? Good. Yeah, I mean, I think that's something, if you send it to me, we'll make sure that we get that. I think that, in what I've seen, just because I've dealt with probably 4 or 5 of these that have come through, there's going to be some instances where that's going to happen, and there's going to be we're going to have to make some, I think, not some interpretations, but we will have to look and see, and that will have to come to us, because I think there's going to be some businesses that are going to come in with some extenuating circumstances because of the ordinance, that the way we wrote it, and we will have to make a judgment call at that time, so, thank you.
And I forgot one thing, Madam Chairman, I apologize. Typically in zoning, when this is an exception, typically in zoning, when a zone restriction is written into a zoning ordinance, it's always from the building to the lot line, and it's not typically from the lot line to the lot line. And this building is 107 feet away from Stony Lake. But this wording is atypical of zoning setbacks. The setbacks, all the setbacks, front yard setbacks, side yard setbacks, rear yard setbacks, are all from where the building is to the lot line. And I just wanted to put that in there as information. Thank you.
Thank you. Good information. Anybody else? Yep. Yeah, and what you bring up, I have to tell you, I've had discussions already with some of the businesses that have wanted to come in, and those are exactly the kinds of questions that they've had brought up because of our the way our ordinance is written. So we will check on that to make sure, and I just have a feeling that as these things come up, those will be the kinds of questions that we'll have to look at, and we'll have to make a decision, because it is vested into this council to do that. I wish that we did have it going through the zoning board, because that would have made it a whole lot easier, but it's by special.
They don't feel that way.
I know, it would have been a whole lot easier for us, I think, but yeah, thank you. Yes.
Thank you. So I guess that's part of the reason why I bring it up this evening, is that if we have to I believe that there is some paperwork that they could file so that that will give them not necessarily a variance for it, but it allows them to split their lot, do a couple of different things, whatever. I have misplaced my piece of paper with that information on it. However, but again, that's why, when we created this ordinance, this honorable body created this ordinance so that it was exceptionally restrictive. So it would not be, and this was a couple of years back, and maybe our policies have changed, or maybe our feelings about these things have changed, maybe our opinions about it have changed. So maybe that's something we need to relook at, especially where we have two other businesses that are coming in to look, and this one point A kills it all for all three of them, really, the way it's written here. So I think that instead of in some vague way that we're just going to kind of, because we can grant a special permit all we want, we don't have to look at that, but at the same token, at some other point, that could be used against us as we just set a precedent, and someone wants to move in someplace that we really don't want, that's not a golf course in a residential district, it could be someplace else. So I would really prefer, I know that the second this passes the council, the time starts ticking for the marijuana people. That's not necessarily my concern. My concern is making sure that there are certain circumstances where that we can be a little bit loose with these kinds of things. I don't believe that this is one of them. So I think, again, I will send to you a detailed email with regards to that tomorrow morning. And
I appreciate that. So first thing we have to realize if there is a conflict, okay, there may not be. So that hasn't been determined yet, that there is a conflict, okay? So that has to be determined first. It may be that there isn't one. So we'll look at that once we get your information. If there is a conflict, then we'll be able to get instructions on how this council can deal with that and what the procedures are before we do that. But for right now, unless we, at this point in time, something was brought up, I have no idea whether it's a conflict or not. All right, so that's one thing. At this point in time, I don't feel that it's a conflict. If it does become a conflict, we'll know that before we vote it out to the council, and the council will know. So, as form, the way it's written, I'd like to vote this out. We can clarify that. Everybody will get the message like we normally do, and get instructions on to what we have to do at that point in time. I do know that there are a couple of things in the ordinance already that have to be changed, and I am going to bring in some new business very shortly to clarify some of those things. It really does need to be something that does go through that isn't done by special permit. It needs to have a review process other than this council, I think, with some recommendations just for some of these concerns, my opinion. So that being given, okay, I'm going to ask for a vote to just take it out of here. So,
Thank you. So why are we bringing it out of committee tonight then, if we don't have all the answers? Just
well, but because we've taken things out of committee before. I mean, that we've taken things out of committee before. With the understanding that we'll get there and that clarification. It may not be an issue. I mean, it may not be an issue. So that's something that.
So respectfully, can I just ask, can we call for a committee meeting next week before the regular meeting? Just because we might have that information by then. And then if you want to vote it out, then you can actually vote it out to full council if you want to. Or was that not your intention to do next week, to vote it out to the full council?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to vote it out to the full council, but I wanted to get it out of committee tonight, just so we can have this, so we can bring it. And the reason why is the way this motion is written, it's written for the council to respond to it, and not necessarily committee members, because each one of us would have to go through what we decided with each number. We'd have to go through. It couldn't be us three voting on it. The motion is actually written for the council to vote on, if that makes sense what I'm saying. I truly don't believe. I mean, we've done this before. Somebody asks a question, we get the question determined before it goes to the council. If it comes to something different, then
You don't have to bring it out.
right, then I don't have to bring it out. Yeah, so I mean, I'd like to bring it out tonight. I'd like to get the answer. If we don't have the answers we need before the council, I won't bring it out to the council for a vote. Okay, if that's fair.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you only because we're not asking for additional information to be submitted. It's clarifying information. This has been vetted many times by the city solicitor. She came down and spoke to us a couple of weeks ago. She prepared this motion with you, and I think that if that were an issue from her perspective, she would have brought that up to you or to all of us when she had the opportunity a couple of weeks ago. So I'm okay bringing it out of committee or not accepting any additional information. You're getting clarity, which we do all the time. So it is a bit different than the previous one, where I had some strong feelings that we ought to
Yeah.
not bring that forward because there was a risk that it was additional information and was an amendment to what we had advertised. So I'm okay with voting. I'm on the committee, and I'll vote.
Okay, so, yeah, so we will get that, definitely get the clarification. It'll go through the solicitor exactly the way your question was being asked, and we'll get that information straight and squared away. So I'm going to ask for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so the vote passes, and that, I hope. And again, I apologize for not being here on time, but that ends the Committee on Zoning and Land Use at 6:49.
Second.
Thank you. We are now adjourned.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. You heard all that, Carrie? Okay, thank you. And thank you for your input. No.
Right. I'd like to call the Public Works Committee's meeting to order at 6:50. First of all, I want to say congratulations to all of my colleagues.
A voice.
Very nice. No, it's from standing out in the cold for so long, right?
And to you.
Thank you ever so kindly. I have 3 motions that I'm bringing out this evening, but only one of them we will be voting out to the full council this evening. Firstly, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to appropriate $272,949.20 from account 6100-359000 Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings to account 6100-553150 Water Enterprise Fund water meters, excuse me, for the purchase to approximately 1,100 water meters, 100 straight meters connection, and 2,230 washers and 1 premium laptop computer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. So this motion, as you know, they've been doing the water meter replacement program for quite some time now, and this is just to continually continue the process. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Secondly, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to accept the generous donation of $379,140 from Columbia Gas to allow the city, excuse me, to complete the paving on Pleasant Street and West Street with any residual funds applied to complete paving projects on other streets impacted by Columbia Gas.
Second.
Thank you. So, we have a moratorium on paving. If we've just paved the street and within 5 years, it gets torn up for, whether it's a gas purpose or, most of the time it's for utility purposes, there is a requirement for these streets to be repaved into the condition that they were new, because they're brand new in 5 years. So Columbia Gas has agreed to do this and abide by that, and if there's any leftovers, they'll go into other streets. They're not going to finish doing West Street and Pleasant Street until the springtime now. So, any questions, comments, please?
Thank you very much. That's been kind of part and parcel. It hasn't been enforced, so good job to Lance for Superintendent Hill for working with them to kind of push them a little harder to be able to enforce that, because I've had different streets, constituent concerns where the gas companies come through and the pavement has dropped, and you have to have someone come out and check it they're required to come out every 3 months, and then 6 months, then once a year over that course of that 5 years. I believe that's the case.
Yes.
And so then that way, if we have a claim against them, they at least know and see what's happening. So it's kind of like having a lease car. So you have to keep up with your maintenance and inspections, and they will be able to replace it. So great job to Lance for pushing that along with them and getting the reimbursement funds. So that's great.
Absolutely, and the first person I had to deal with wasn't that long ago, and it was a Ward 5 constituent. And the same thing, he needed to have gas added to his property, but it was just newly paved in front of him. And I didn't know about the I didn't know this whole agreement existed. So it was kind of interesting to hear it, because Lance did say to me, if you get any complaints, they're all coming to you. So, yeah, but anyways, yeah, it's good. All those in favor? Oops, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So I'm, in addition to calling out Lance, I think we should also call out Councilor Conti for, I think, insisting as part of, if my memory serves me right, Rick, when this was all happening and there was a rallying to get the gas brought up west and down Berwick Road, I think that one of the things that you stood up and said was that the road needed to be completed when the work was completed. So in addition to Lance, you know, I do remember, Rick, if I remember right, that you were part of the, you know, making sure that the funds were made payable back to the city to do that work. So you, as well as Lance, thank you for doing that, because as you know, I drive down that road several times a day, and looking forward to when it's paved, so thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Cooper. Kudos. Like your new jacket.
I really don't have anything to say.
Put that in your minutes, Ms. Jackson.
It's on tootin', I will. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thirdly, and lastly, I entertain a motion to approve the petition from National Grid and Verizon to relocate pole 491120 toward Martin Street to accommodate customer newly installed driveway and to install new joint-owned pole number 4912 and guy wires to service a new house at 93 Orange Street.
Second.
Thank you. Again, I received a call from a Ward 5 constituent, brand-new house. He's been waiting to get his utilities into his new house, and it's just been stalled for so long. The public hearing was held on this back in October 24th, I think, maybe October 14th. I think it was October 24th. So he called because he was anxious to get this rolling along. So this is the one motion that I will be bringing forward this evening, just to get it passed, so that he can get service to his property. Yes, please. Mr.
So he
Conti.
called me too, and his electrician called me as well, and I didn't know what was holding it up. Do you know what held it up?
I think the process from which he had spoken with National Grid and National Grid actually getting it to the city was a long period of time.
Yeah.
Because we had the public hearing as soon as we got the information. So, yeah, that's my understanding. So,
The house has been finished for months.
I know, I didn't know that. I mean, because why would I know that?
Yeah,
But,
right.
Yeah, but it's all, he's happy. He does know that this evening we were taking this up and that we were going to vote it out tonight, and I'm going to give him a buzz tomorrow to let him know. Okay.
Excellent, thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. I'd like to call for an adjournment at 6:57, right on time to start this meeting for you, Mr. Acting President Cooper.
Perfect.
Yes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 6:57. Thank you.
It's upside down.
Oh, we don't want that.
We do not. Oh.
Steve.
We reach about 70.
Okay.
This meeting of the Municipal Council will now come to order. Please stand and join me in a salute to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please turn off all cell phones as they do interfere with the cable broadcast. I entertain a motion to approve the records of November 7th, 2017.
Second?
Thank you, Councilor Jackson. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, motion passes. Would the city clerk please read the supplemental, the special meeting notice? Thank you.
The date, October
Give me one
11,
reading.
2017, to the members of the Municipal Council from Frank Cook, Council President. Councilors, by authority of Article 2, Section 2-7C of the Attleboro Home Rule Charter, I hereby call a special meeting of the Municipal Council as follows. Tuesday, November 14th, 2017, at 7 p.m. in Council Chambers. The purpose is to hold a public hearing for the purposes of setting the tax classification so that the necessary vote can be taken to determine the percentage of the local tax levy to be borne by each class of property for fiscal year 2018 and any other matters / other legal matters that may come before the council. CC Mayor Kevin J. Dumas.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this tax classification? Anyone to speak in favor? Looking at you.
Where's he?
Well, I don't know if I'm speaking in favor or speaking for or against.
Okay, so then we'll wait. Is there anybody else to speak in favor? Is there anyone to speak in up? Oh.
Evening, Mr. President.
Mm.
Your Honorable Body.
President.
A little out of order, but usually Stan makes his presentation first. But such is. I'd like to speak in favor of moving the tax classification down to 1.25. I'd like to see that continued down to that level. I think there'll be a presentation later on explaining part of that. I also brought you a present. Sorry, I only have one copy.
No, we can get copies made for everybody.
Heard a lot in the last few weeks about, increasing the business and commercial in Attleboro, and I think that's a great idea. This is an example of what we get in the mail, I'm going to say monthly, from different states that you're competing with for not only my business, but for everybody else who is in this climate. I called just this morning just to find out they actually mailed out 50,000 of those magazines this particular year to different commercial entities that the state of Georgia is looking to attract. So feel free. I don't need that back. You can do whatever you want with it.
Sure.
So,
Disseminate it through the council. Thank you.
thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry. Bill Larson, 142 Fairway Drive, 90 Olive Street. My other taxes.
Thank you. Is there anybody else to, any questions for the gentleman? Sorry, thank you.
Thank you. So why do you support 1.25?
I would like to see the message come from the council that you're continuing to work with the commercial and industrial to make it a more favorable place to do business. And I think by doing that, that message is received loud and clear.
Follow-up?
Yes, sir.
Well, I appreciate it, Bill, when you come in, because you're both. You're residential and industrial. So if the council looks favorably upon the 1.25 split, how do we explain that to the residents where that would be, I don't have numbers yet to see what the exact numbers would be. So how do we explain that to the residential homeowner?
I'm going to defer my answer to one of the other guests that I think you'll be hearing from tonight.
Okay.
They'll be able to explain it to you much better than I will.
Thank you very much.
Council Contier. Okay,
Thank you. So, Bill, we also know that you serve on the school committee.
I am a Ward 2 representative on the school committee, and I'm not authorized on their behalf to speak for them. I'm not here in their behalf. whatsoever.
And we all know that coming up on March 9th is a debt exclusion vote.
I hope so. Looking
And-
forward to it.
And that is likely to have a big impact on residential taxes.
Yep.
So my question to you is that, given that on March 9th, residential taxes might go up several $100s, is it wise to also take the shift further during a year like that to exacerbate an even bigger margin for a one-year jump? In other words, what I'm trying to say is that if we go from 1.325 to 1.25, my guess, and I'm only working on numbers from 2 years ago because I wasn't here last year when we did the tax classification, that action going from 1.325 to 1.25 is probably going to cause a $225 increase in residential taxes. And then along March 9th comes and there's a $400 jump. Now, in 1 year, the taxes have gone up as much as they have in the last 4 years. And it's because we did this shift in addition to the voters voting for the debt exclusion. Do you, in light of that, do you still think that this is a wise decision?
I do. And if I can respond through the chair to a number of your comments. We need to continue to grow the industrial and commercial base in the city desperately. We need to do whatever we can to that end. No matter what the rate has been in the past, ironically, my taxes at my company have always gone up from year to year. So the rate is only part of it. The valuation, obviously, I mean, you know more than I do about this, that is the other part of the factor. As far as what's going to happen now and what's going to happen in March, I obviously hope the vote goes positive in March because I don't honestly feel that the community has the correct knowledge that if the vote in March goes wrong, it's going to cost every taxpayer in the city of Attleboro significantly more than the $400 or $500 that the paper has been talking about. The heating system in Attleboro High School is going to fail. It is failing now. When that fails, the building will lose its grandfather status. There's $190 million worth of repairs that will need to be done. The city will have to pay all of that. I do not know how the city would ever do that without burdening the taxpayers so greatly. So I understand your question. I personally think they're two separate items. I understand how you're connecting them. I appreciate that. But I think when you look at the whole picture and not individual situations, it's the appropriate thing to do.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Larson? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in favor? Oh, Stan changed his mind.
Mr. Cooper, humor me in the sense of I am a City of Attleboro taxpayer. I am not a resident of the City of Attleboro. I live at 48 Walnut Street in Plainville, Massachusetts. But tonight, I will speak in favor of the classification and give you the information that you need. And as you know, I am the Chief City Assessor. And I think when we get done, you'll understand why. Earlier, you heard that you should go to the 1.25. And if you would just humor me for a second, I'd like to briefly read you something concerning our past budget directors and finance, if Mr. Cooper, if you would do that. As I said, before I begin, I'd like to momently take a recognition for Shannon Hagney and Councilor President Frank Cook. And it's very appropriate tonight because some of what Frank Cook has led us down this path many years ago, and I think it's been successful. Therefore, my 18 years of service to the city, I understand that Shannon to be one of the most conscientious and diligent councilors with respect to understanding taxation and the impact it has had on the residents of her ward and the city at large. Shannon often came to the assessor's office or made calls through the day to ensure she fully understood the process and was able to explain it to the citizens. This extended to the entire city of Attleboro in her capacity as the head of the Budget Committee. I have dealt with 4 chairs of Budget and Finance and found Shannon to have been the best understanding outside of President Cook relative to taxation. This year, she unfortunately took some heat for matters that were outside of her control. I believe she will be missed as a counselor for her ward and all the hard work she has dedicated on behalf of her constituents. Now also, I would like to express and acknowledge Frank Cook for his many years of dedication and service. Similar to Shannon, I was able to work with him many times when his concerns brought him to the assessing office on behalf of the residents of Attleboro. During tax classification procedures, and this is history, the year before Frank became the finance chair, he advocated to pushing a program or putting a program together and come off of the 1.5. One of the other counselors, well known to many of the sits on this council, called him a pessimist. And I'll never forget Frank's response. He said that he was more than willing to let history prove if he was a pessimist or a prophet. Well, time has proven Frank was a prophet, and the city has been and will continue to benefit from his approach. And you're going to see that tonight with this presentation because we've been successful. So thank you for letting me say that, and thank you. And with that, let me pass this massive around the horn. And there should be some extra, ooh, let me take this last one out of there, though. We don't want you to see what Paul's going to say tonight.
Thank you. Welcome, President Cooper.
All set? Everybody's got it? The format's the same as it's been in prior years. The very first page is showing you where we are, where we're going, what might be the forecast going forward. On the very first page, you see that we presently sit at a shift of 1.31. That's the shift that we're presently at. What we're seeing that the average single-family house increased 2.4%. The average single-family tax bill at 1.31 increased 3.56%. I also, on the second sheet, we're going to flip back and forth from the second sheet, because you can see that last year we related to a shift and we brought it down to 1.31. The tax increase in that year was $218 to the residents of the city of Attleboro. As you look through the spreadsheet going on up, I put in the fill into the taxation, and we're going to go into some of the other further things, but you're going to see that the tax rate presently is $14.55, all right? And if you look back on the other one, you're going to see that in going back and forth. If you go up through the ranks of the different numbers, you can see it 1.28 to be 1482. You cannot avoid the fact that you're going to have a tax increase no matter what happens to your values. You know, we all know that 2.5 goes in there, and based on the population and based on the extent of what is existent, that taxes will increase. The average increase that would have been, if we had not brought on more commercialism, would have been at least $160 without any changes, all right? So I'm telling you that, and I tell you that each year that number rolls up higher and higher and higher because of Proposition 2.5 and what happens. So as you go down through this, you look at it and you say, okay, 1.31, it's 145.45 Why is that when I just told you another number? That's because we brought on substantial commercial taxation, all right? We did bring on substantial commercial taxation. In the city of Attleboro, we're fortunate versus surrounding communities. Our neighbors are pushing growth of maybe 500,000. We pushed the growth, and you're going to see this in a later one, the growth for the city of Attleboro this year was $1.491 million, essentially $1.5 million in growth in the city of Attleboro. A key important thing to notice is that it's a 50-50 split. There's where we save, because of what we're doing and a lot of other things. We slowed down by coming off the levy capacity we have. We slowed down the levy. We slowed down the number that taxation 2.5 will roll on the residents. And at the same time, we made ourselves compatible with neighboring communities as far as taxation. Just to give you a brush of what's going on. Also, you see on here that the single-family homes in the city of Attleboro sit at $286,000. That's the average home. Now, a lot of people have, throughout this recent campaign, you had to deal with a lot of heat and a lot of rhetoric of false information, people totally looking at what our tax rate is, just the tax number, not looking at the whole picture. I will tell you tonight that the city of Attleboro residents, on an average, on the average home, pay $1,000 less in taxes than our neighbors. I can tell you that in my home community, we went through taxation last night. We set the residential rate at $1,507. You can see if we went to 1.25, it'd only be $1,492. The other thing that I will tell you, on a very similar home in Attleboro versus Plainville versus North Attleboro, of the same home, they're going to have a let's just say they have a $13.92 or $14 tax rate. Their homes on a similar home is $100,000 more than Attleboro. In my hometown of Plainville, it's $150,000 more for the same home. And I just told you the tax rate is $1,507. One thing the residents should be well aware of, and that's why I'm going into great detail to tell you this. Now, what we have also done, if we go to the 1.25, because of income statements, because of how we do the commercialism, we've put our commercial in the city of Attleboro on par with some of our neighbors. Not quite with North Attleboro, but on par with Plainville, with, if you want to go to the Seacon, we're better than them. We have now made ourselves attractive, okay? And what I'm saying to you, and I've said all along, and Frank, and we've led this drive to get down to, I will not come down here anymore to say to go beyond 1.25, because that's the magical number that you look at. In my mind, calculating everything out, we're doing good. So when you talk about the growth, what did we have a substantial growth? When the substantial growth, and I'll get back to it, I'm jumping way ahead, I'm sorry, because I'm kind of excited with what has transpired in the last 10 years in the city of Attleboro. Not only what you have done for the residents, what you have done for the overall community in bringing in new businesses that are commercial, and you can see the other things that are happening with Carpenter Auto. We're going to have the biggest influx of restaurants in the neighboring communities down in South Attleboro. And what does that mean to us? There's another thing that comes into helping pay and keep down the bills and keep down food tax, the tax on meals. We're going to have a substantial growth in going years forward on that, because he's only done 2 of the 3 major projects that are there. We probably next year in that area, I can tell you just from what I put in there, we probably looking at a substantial new growth in commercial again next year, because in those plazas that he's putting in, there's about $20 million sitting there, which of right now we only have in the, because of the partial in July 1st, only sitting in this growth number of $9 million. So are we being successful? Yes. Then I do look to Counselor Sarah Reynolds, because one of the things that we should focus on, and I hope I'm speaking out of line, but where is our growth coming to in South Attleboro? We ought to look at a program in planning that corridor, maybe it's time to look at rezoning. Make it easier. We talked about making it easier for commercial. We've made it easier in the tax base. We should talk about making it easier about if they want to come in there, not having to do special permits, go right ahead and do it. Because I've been asked that, and I mentioned that because I've been asked that a number of times when we have to do applications for a butters list. They constantly say, we got to go for a special permit. We're looking at this area, but you only got 100 feet back in this area. Oh, well, why don't you do this? So it's just a suggestion, Counselor. I just know that you're sitting on the substantial commercial aspect. The other new counselor that's coming in is sitting on the other substantial, Ward 3. What's taking on, going towards the Norton line, that's our other big expansion that's coming forward. There's going to be professional buildings, we all know that. But commercially, we're going to do well. We're going to do well in the coming years. We do have to note, though, why we're moving some of the burden is to balance. We need to balance, and the reason we need to balance is this year alone, we have built 72 new homes. The split in the growth is 45-45 residential, 45 million residential, 45 million, 40 million commercial. We're going to continue to see growth in the residential because we have substantial building stock in residential. So that's not going to subside. So there's why, though, you do want to shift some of the burden to the residential, what we're doing tonight, but not beyond a 1.25, okay? And then I will also, and if you will humor me, I'm going to address some other misnomers relative to the school, all right? We talk about that the average taxpayer is going to pay $400 in each quarter. That is not quite true, all right? That is not quite true, and you may have also heard from other taxpayers, they're going to pay less. The majority, 65% of this city is going to be paying less than $400, all right? And I'm going to show you statistics on that, and you will also hear some advocates saying we're going the wrong way with this rate because of the school, and we should be going up so that it will release the burden. I'm also going to show you the numbers on what does a 1.5 mean versus a 1 on $1 million per $1 million. It's nothing. If you want to go all the way to 1.5 and save the residents on the $12 million, you want to save them $4 in taxation, because that's the difference between all these things. It's kind of crazy, but I'll give you the data to understand that you're going to hear. Throughout your election, you've heard a lot of misinformation, and I'm sorry I couldn't step forward and do that, but couldn't do it. So now, going back to page 1, you see what's on page 1 on the different splits. We sit at when I started doing this presentation, I was looking at the 1.28. As I plugged in, got the growth certified, I said that this would be the year to get it over with, to go to 1.25. The reason I suggest to go to 1.25, you could see that last year we hit the residents with, as I said, over a 218 tax bill. This year, if we go to the 1.25, it'll be 202. What I will also tell you that if you do that, and what I told you earlier, that will not be happening on a continuous basis because of the growth that's coming on in commercial. And one of the things that you always looked at in the past is what have we done? You've always looked over on the commercial side, and we're giving them, you said, we're giving them a break, we're giving them a break, we're giving them a break. That doesn't sit too good. Well, you can see that we're being successful now, because we may be going down to 1.25 if you do go with that, but you can also see they're no longer getting a break. They're paying more taxes. They're paying, if it was at the 1.31, they're going to pay $1,500 more on their average. If it's at the 1.28, they're going to pay $1,000 more on their average. And if it's at the 1.25, they're going to pay $640 more, based on 636, but let's call it as 640 on an average commercial property. So, and why I'm using those numbers tonight? Because, as I said to you earlier, the majority of our commercial now is sitting in the 933 area. All right? If you go down and you look at the small businesses that we want to help, yeah, most definitely, they're going to be paying more, but they're not going to be paying substantially more as in prior years when they are 1.5. One of the other things, and I'd like to address this to Councilor Conti and to Shannon Hagney, when we had the budget hearings, we talked about the personal property. You were very successful. It made our job easier, made collections better when we went to the $7,000. And I would like to say to you tonight, administration might say, take it to the 10. Take it to the 10. Because it's helping the small business. They're the ones that you're really helping there. It's helping the city in collection. It doesn't, how small as it is, because you don't collect it, it again stops that levy capacity that you never collect and you push over on the residents. So you need to do that. There are some other things that I will mention to you tonight, talking about the school. I would suggest, this is an administrative, and yet the councilors could sponsor it, do like other communities, because we have a school coming forward. And I am a major taxpayer. You do know that. I pay substantially more money in taxes in the city of Attleboro than I do in my hometown of Plainville. I have no vote in the school because I vote in there. But if I were to vote, I would vote to build the school, because I tell you this, when I hear at the counter, what I hear from everybody that comes there, they say, look, and I hear from business, it's one of the 5 factors that you want. That's the only factor that this city is missing, is a good high school. And that's what everybody says. They like the middle school, they like all of that that goes into this city. The seniors, there's an issue. I think what we should do relative to other communities, my home community, and as I give you the information tonight, match the exemption. We give them an exemption for seniors right now of, right now it sits at $600. I suggest you do like neighboring communities. It will come out of the levy capacity. I will have to ask administration to put more money into my levy, my overlay, to pay out this, but I suggest that you take the senior exemption and match it, therefore giving them $1,000. These are just recommendations out of the assessor's office to assist in making the city stronger. All right?
Thank you.
A little deviation, I'm sorry, Counselor, but go.
Let me just ask, if there are any questions at this point? I see some hands going up, so I just want to see if there's any questions at this point and then let you continue. I see your hand, and I think Councilor Delis, did you address question?
Thank you, Acting President Cooper. Just to address the senior exemption, or just in general, I think that some of the things that I've heard, and I think it's an important part, is that people have the expectation that at whatever date we take the vote, the next thing they know, they're getting hit with a tax bill. But perhaps you might be able to explain, I mean, if we're having the conversation, I know it deviates from our public hearings.
No, I deviated quite a bit, so, because this is a very important, right?
It's a bigger deviation than I'm
Willing to go
willing to
for.
accept at
That's
this
fine.
point. So, well, I think it's critically, don't get me wrong, right? It's critically important that we have this discussion, but tonight's not the night.
Okay.
So I would respectfully request that you keep going through your presentation unless you have other questions for Mr. Nassowitz at this
I
time.
will hold any other questions I
Great,
may.
thank you.
We can come down another night on it. Thank you. But thank you, Counselor, our Vice President, maybe soon to be President. Okay. So we're on page 1. We went through page 1. And I gave you the rates. I gave you what it would be. Page 2 is just a rehash of what it was in 2017. All right, that's what you saw in 2017. That gives you the numbers from 2017. What I'm showing you on page 3 is the levy capacity. The total levy capacity is $70,764,061. You can see in there where it says FY 2018 new growth, $1,491,000. You can see what Proposition 2.5 added. That's where I told you nothing changes. You got to pay. Everybody's got to pay that across that. That's $1,689,595. Yes, sir.
And the new growth, is that the certified number?
That is certified. I am certified, and everything I'm giving you tonight on my end at the Department of Revenue has been approved.
Great, thank you.
All right? So there's the levy limit, including the new growth inside of it. That's the makeup of what taxation would be. And it's, as we say, that's 50% of what's raised in this city. But that, just to bear in mind, that 70 million back in 2004, when there was a change in administration, it was only $32 million. That's why when people relate to, yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's amended fiscal year 17 growth, I see it, thank you.
All set? Okay. Let's turn to page 4. Page 4, where is the growth? And this is what I got excited about and told you in the beginning. The very first one gives you the growth on this year. All right? The first column is FY 2018. Look at the 3-year average. Residential always has been the substantial growth number. Look at this year's. This year, still residential is the higher of the two, but when you put together the commercial, industrial, and the personal property, they balance out essentially. Substantial growth, if you look at the numbers, the residential growth, 1.66. Those are a lot of houses, but 6.9 or basically 7% came out of commercial industrial. And as I told you, it's going to happen again next year. So if we go to the 1.25, you're not going to see a substantial tax increase on the residents next year. I mean, what you do have to worry about, house values are going up rapidly, so who knows what 2 years from now will.
Yep, I see, I'm writing.
So at a 1.25, the residential tax bills will actually go up $12 less than they went up last year.
That's correct.
And the state has a calculation for the percentage of residential contribution to levy. And I don't know what that is at 1.25. I know what it is at 1.75 because I have to deal with it next door. Do you know what the...
It's right at the top. Turn to page 1 again. I gave you the contribution. I fanned it out. See at the very top, Councilor Conti, at 1.25, the contribution will be 77.38.
Oh.
Okay? And the contribution for the commercial will be 18.91.
Got it. Thank you.
All right? And that number, essentially what we did is, if you look on the second sheet, at 1.25 and versus 1.31, we balanced it out. It's balanced out at 1.25, and what took place, there's no essential, the contribution we kept the same. That's why I say to you, next year we go to 1.25, we stay at 1.25. The contribution will be less on the residential and more on the commercial. In prior years, realistically in prior years, the contribution of the residential, telling you that what we are applying on, if we stayed the course we were in the past, the contribution of residential at a 1.5 would have been 81%. We would have been taking more tax dollars out of the residents than we are today. Well, I would estimate with what we've done to the levy and what we've done to everything, we've reduced on the average the tax bill by about 50 cents, okay, over the years by coming off of that rate. Crazy as it may seem, you may think it's not possible, but that's what you do when you don't artificially, you know what I'm talking about, artificially, when you put a 1.5 on a commercial business that's here and gone tomorrow, that number shifts over to the residential. They then pick it up.
So if I may, and this will be my last comment, Stanley, because
I enjoy it, you can ask me.
No, on the first long sheet that you have in our package, at the very top, you've got the value, and you've got residential open space of 81.9024%. That is the assessed value, correct?
All right, let me go to the, I just lost my paper clip.
The first long page.
You're talking about the, what if?
Yeah, what if? So up at the top of the page, it says class residential value, 3,600,000,000, percentage 81.9024.
That's all residential.
That's all the residential.
That's all
assessments, correct?
Assessments, that's correct.
So coming over to the front page, looking at residential, you've got the value, but the tax contribution to the whole is 76.
Correct.
Sorry.
You see-
At 1.31 is 76.29%.
That one that you're looking at, the 81, is at a 1. That's if we had no shift whatsoever.
Right. So the point I want to make, to try to clarify this, is that on the long sheet, you can see that residential value is 82% of the total, but in the levy, the residential at 1.31 is only 76.29% of the contribution to the levy.
Correct.
Good.
Correct.
That's the only point I wanted to make.
Yep. And it's reducing their portion by 5%, essentially. We've done, and as I said to you earlier, if we had not done what we did, that 81 would have been more like 84, and they would have been paying 81% of the contribution. So we're successful. We're successful among the community, and we're being successful in our surrounding areas, because while everybody else is striving, they're raising their residential rates and our values and everything else. As far as I'm concerned, is concerning now today is what is our residents paying relative to residents in neighboring communities, and they're doing well. As I told you earlier, no matter what anybody says, they've got to look at both what the house value is and you're going to come out ahead in the city of Attleboro as a resident, $1,000 less, plus have major services. That's a key attribute. Neighboring communities, they don't have the type of services that the city of Attleboro gets as well. All right? Now, and then, well, I didn't mean to jump to the what if, but if you, let me get back to where we went through the levy. We went to the growth. I showed you what the segments were, the value changes among each. That fourth sheet gives you all of that, the 3-year average. Then here's something important to everyone to notice. If you go to the 5th sheet, it's called the LA4 comparison. All right? I believe it's the 5th sheet. My stuff is out of order, so I'm sorry. All right, LA4 comparison report, fiscal year 2018. What I've shown there for you, which I started doing last year, I showed you the shift among different classes. we talked about what the single family is doing, and we talked about the 3% to 3%, 3.6%, and this figures growth in value in there. But one thing to look at, which is disturbing to me as an assessor, is the value growth in condominiums. Well, condominiums are going to be picking up a substantial portion of the tax burden. They went up 7.5%. All has to do with sales. It's kind of rampant when you all of a sudden see condominiums selling for more than single-family homes. It has happened in my time as an assessor 3 times before, 1987, 1997, 2008. I tell you that because those have all been downturns in the market. We're almost there where we were in those prior timeframes. So, but I go on down through there. One thing that is also still going up, 2 families, because of the rents that are getting in 2 families, we figure out the rental income, 2 families went up 4.7. 3 families, they really haven't moved much because they took a big jump 2 years ago. And we do have a bigger inventory of 2 families too. As you can see the parcel count based on the styles and whatever, it's 2 to 1, 2 families to 3 families. And you go down through that entire list and you'll see that, you know, what has changed. So only thing tonight we talk about is single-family homes. So you may have people that live in condos come in and say to you, what the heck is going on? You know, my taxes went up $320. That has to do with sales, what the sale values are. Yeah, a single, we all know in Commerce Way, there's some, I'm sorry, they're paying between $350 and $425 for those condos over now. Okay, and a maintenance fee. So it is a beautiful neighborhood, but I don't know if I'd pay that. No, it's okay. All right, so going into the second page of it, it's just a continuation, and that's where we bulk it up. We bulk it up by the class, the commercial, and as you see, commercial at 8.2%. We took on, that's why we're doing what we're doing tonight, and hopefully you follow through with it. That's that page. I gave you the LA, and it's the what if. This big one that Counselor looked at, Conti, that's the one if, what are all the splits and what it comes down. I surmised it. I stopped it at 125 because I could go to the 1, but never wanted to recommend going down to the 1. I've always said right along, we want to stop at 125. So that's the what if sheet. Now, what I have is a bunch of color charts that you want to see, or however I should be saying it these days. I have a number of graphs showing you the different values of fiscal year 17 and fiscal year 18. This first bar chart shows you that sales and properties are moving upwards. The new homes and the new sales are over the 280 mark, but it's not a normal distribution. This is where I'm going to talk to you about what would you pay for the thing. The second sheet shows you those sales in comparison by $10,000 values. This sheet right here, all right? You can see that everything, the majority of the city is nestled down around 220, 230. I'm going to jump into this one to show you the sales on an explicit view of what took place last year for sales in 2017. Actually, it's the sales of all of 2016 and 2017 to date, till October 1st. But I wanted to show you what the percentages that are going on. And we have substantial sales are taking place. More than 33% of this city is taking place in the $300 to the $600,000 range.
Bless you.
All right? Now, talking about, and again, Councilor Coop, if you'd humor me a little bit, in taxation, who's going to pick up the burden? Here's a breakdown of house values. This one here shows you house values of what percentage of homes are in what category of single-family homes. It will show you that under $270,000, 55% of the 55% of the community, or 5,278 communities, are under $270,000. 45%, or 4,369, are over. That's where I related to you that 33% of the new sales coming forward are above what our average is. I broke it down a little further to explain something to you, is that when they throw out the average, because it's not a normal distribution, they're averaging in all the high houses with the low houses. But the normal house in the city of Attleboro that is going to be paying for the school is about $230,000. Therefore, when I'm going to go through, and that's where I broke the pie down even further to show you what's under 240, what's under, and what's the percentages. So tonight, I'm going to say to you, when you tell people that it's $400, realistically, it's very important to know what the price of your home is. And if your home is not that there, and you're down in that bimodal distribution, which 33% or 45% of the city is, you're probably going to be paying not a $400 increase, a $300 increase. All right? And that is going to, over time, with what's taking place tonight, what's taking place in the commercial, I would venture to guess it's not going to rise. If anything, because of what's coming on with the new homes. The people are up the high end, they're going to be paying more, most definitely, for that school. But, and then I took it a little bit further for you. I took it a further breakdown. If you actually wanted to see the homes, the number of homes by every 10,000 that are in the bracket, and tell them, there are homes out there, I'm going to say to you, there's about 15% of the city that is not even going to pay $200. All right? And I'm doing this only for knowledge base to know of what's happening. Now, that's where the homes are. That's the makeup of the city. It is not a normal distribution. When they throw out the average home price, know that it is not a normal distribution. The majority, it's slanted, all right? It's skewed. It's a skewed distribution, so. Now, this sheet is to disfound or disprove some non-truths that have been going around, that you shouldn't go up to the one, you should go up to the 1.5, you're gonna save the taxpayers a lot of money. Not gonna happen. What I'm showing in here, I took the what if per every $1 million. All right? I put the levy as if it's 1 million, and I helped when we were doing the school calculation, I helped do some of those numbers and give insight. What I did here is what I wanted to show you. This column over here is residential. That's all you're really caring about. What is going to be the tax on 1,000, if you were loaning $1 million per $1,000, what is it gonna be on you as the resident? It'd be 21 cents. It will be 21 cents all the way up to 1.35. And then the remainder of the time, it'll be 20 cents all the way to 1.5. Now, what I said to you at the beginning of this presentation, if you were to shift all the way to 1.5, like some people say you need to do to help the residents, okay, save them $2. It's not, it's a penny. We're talking a penny. That's not substantial. Instead, what we did, or what has been done by the council, is substantially helping the residents on the other side. That's what you've got to tell the taxpayers. What you did, you substantially reduced their tax burden relative to what they could have been paying if you stayed at the 1.5. And at the same time, you made the city healthier by making this a more competitive city when it comes to commercial. Okay? Basically, I rambled on and on and on about different things that are sitting here, but it's actually, I honestly think it couldn't have come at a better time from my point of view, because the outgoing president and the retiring president, he was an advocate, and he took a lot of heat during those times when we went on this. The finance chair, who was at that time, not mentioning names, fought tooth and nail to not come off the 1.5. Would have been disastrous. Kind of funny, though, now that, and this is editorial, and you can shoot me down, but it's kind of funny that now all of a sudden those very same people are saying, we got to bring in commercialism. Okay, you've done a great job. You as councilors and past councilors have done a great job for the residents of Attleboro.
Thank you, Stan. Any other questions for Stanley? No? Thank you. Thank you, Stan.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else to speak in favor?
It's only 10 pages that we have to get through.
I had me nervous there for a minute.
Serious? Oh, sorry. My name is Paul Denese. I live at 15 Musket Road. And although I was a member of the Committee on Tax Classification that was formed back in 2013 to develop and recommend an equitable approach to the tax split to the city, which we submitted to you all with a big thud on 2013, November 12th. I'm here tonight to comment on the proposed tax split recommended by the assessor. I'm not offering an alternative recommendation. So you're going to have to... Attached is a worksheet that we submitted in 2013, which kind of summarizes a lot of what Stan talked about tonight. And you can see the tax rate splits from 2010 to what's proposed tonight at 1.25. What the total tax rate that generated off a total tax levy. Now, you all tax to the max, so you pretty much, in a strong year like 2017, we got a 4.5% increase in the total tax levy. You've got to, you're going to collect that in taxes from residents, commercial, industrial, personal property. So if you tax to the max, then you're going to have to pass that on. So what we had recommended was that, all right, if you have a 3.3% increase, as it was in 2016, and you increase the residential tax bill by 3.3 or 3.4, then everybody pays their fair share. And you collect, depending on how fast the residential tax base increases, you'll maintain a certain levy. And you can see that despite all of the shifts and tax splits over the years, the total residential tax collection as a percentage of the total tax levy has averaged 74, 75%, until last year you hit a high of 76, and this year will be 77, as Stan pointed out. Now, the 2017, if I go back to my prepared notes, the shift to a tax rate split of 1.31 in 2017 resulted in an average residential property tax increase of 5.6%, which exceeded the total tax levy increase of 4.5%. Therefore, it generated an average single home tax increase average of $217, which was an historical high for the city. This was noted in a 3rd February article by the Boston Globe titled, "Where You Will Pay the Highest Taxes," where it takes great delight in just taking that we all agree it's average residential tax increase percentage year over year for all the cities and towns, and Attleboro was in like the top 10. I have the other cities and towns in the area if you like. If you want. North Attleboro was 3%, Mansfield 3.3, Plainville 3.9, Bentham 2.6, so forth. Seekonk 2.2. So it didn't seem to have any effect on housing sales.
No.
So I don't know whether it was taxpayer fatigue or whether it was not as bad as they expected, or they're just slow to get it because of the way it dribbles out through your, you get a call from your bank saying, oh, you got to build your escrow account up a little more. You get that call in June. You don't relate to something that happened back in November. I don't know. I don't know why. This is the one thing I always think that you get people, residents with torches and pitchforks coming into the council meeting. It doesn't happen, so.
It does.
Maybe you hear it. Yeah, you hear it, I suppose. Okay, so the current recommendation for 2018 is a tax rate split of 1.25. And that generates an average residential tax bill of 5% increase, $203, which is pretty close to the total tax levy increase. So it's pretty much back to your historical record of increasing the residential taxes as a percentage to the same as the tax levy. So we're in agreement with that 1.25. Now, you might say, well, why didn't that shift, since the shift from 1.35 to 1.31 a year ago generated all this huge increase? Well, the problem is that in that tax levy, the increase in the tax valuations last year was heavily on the residential side, 7.6%. Commercial was 1.2. This year, the commercial's gone up 6.8, and the residential's only gone up by 2.4. So you're getting back in balance on the tax base that you're hitting that with on the tax rate. And the other thing is that, as Stan pointed out, that we had a $97 million increase in the property base, new property added. And that was evenly split between the commercial, industrial, personal property and the residential, both at about $48 million. So you didn't end up with a slug coming on one side of the balance beam versus the other. So on that basis, I'm in favor of the 1.25. Any questions? Okay.
Well, thank you. Could you just make sure that Linda gets a copy of it?
Yeah, she has.
Okay, great, thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in favor?
Good evening, all. My name's Jack Lank, and I'm the President and CEO of the United Regional Chamber of Commerce, but I also live here in Attleboro at 18 Lindsay Farm Lane. As I just said to Stan, that was a great presentation. Clear as mud, but it covers everything. As a business organization, we'd like to do away with the dual tax rate. We know that's not necessarily ever going to happen. But the issue of whether or not to have a dual tax rate is extremely complex and can be very deceptive. Unfortunately, the way business is taxed is intricately different from the way a resident is taxed, which results in itself a great deal of confusion. Many proponents do not have all the data needed to be fully informed concerning the long-term and often negative effects of a dual tax rate that could consequently have on our local economy and all of our home real estate values. The perception of immediate tax relief to homeowners often overshadows the truly downward spiraling ripple effect such a move typically has on the local economy over time. Fortunately, with the changes that have been made over the past few years, we're headed in the other direction when it comes to the commercial properties. The United Regional Chamber of Commerce asks that you help us in our efforts to educate the residents and businesses alike concerning the impact of the dual tax rate by letting me read the attached statements. A dual tax rate raises no money for essential city services, none whatsoever. The total tax levy in any city or town in Massachusetts is set by Proposition 2.5, and the level of new growth in a city or town. Again, the total amount of overall tax dollars raised does not change in any way under a dual tax rate system. When property valuations increase overall, the dollar tax rate is lowered, noting an often increasing valuation every 3 years. Residents can become fearful that their overall tax bills will increase dramatically and in proportion to the amount their assessed value has been raised. However, this isn't the case. The tax rate is of necessity, lowered when this happens as a direct result of higher valuations due to a fixed set total tax levy and amount. Of the 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts, only 100 or so at any given time have a dual tax rate in effect. There are many reasons why less than 30% of the cities and towns in the state opt for a dual tax rate, some of which I'll explain here. There is a known statistical ratio of number of for-profit businesses to the number of taxable residential units that should trigger a close look at whether a dual tax rate starts to make sense or not for certain communities, which is 30% business and 70% residential. Currently, right now, in Attleboro, it's 82% residential and only 18% business. Only if the city or town has reached the well-documented 30% has among its major business taxpayers business that are difficult to move, such as power plants, shopping malls. Only then does it make sense to consider a dual tax rate, and Attleboro doesn't meet any of those criteria. The current tax rate system is already neither fair nor equitable for the businesses. But businesses pay toward such city things as the city school system and trash pickup, which they don't use. Residents have always received a greater value, dollar for dollar, from their tax payments, and still do even so now. Continuing with a dual classification would rather increase the inequity, would be a great injustice, and additionally continue to skew the ratio of payments made to services and the benefits received to the residents. Under a dual tax rate system, because there is a ratio of approximately 80% homeowners per every 20 businesses in Attleboro, homeowners would see a small decrease in their taxes, where businesses would see some 4 times that due to the 4-to-1 ratio. That's not fair. Over time, a dual tax rate may well decrease the amount of money available to the municipality for essential city services, because there's a strong disincentive in the local economic development, which is the real backbone of any tax issue. Almost all of the local professional and businesses have already suffered greatly from the slow-to-recover economy that we've had over the past 7 or 8 years. Businesses and professionals have many costs of doing business that are invisible to the consumers, such as the ever-increasing insurance costs for property, errors and omissions, and especially health insurance coverage, which you all have to deal with on a regular basis. Licensing fees, innumerable addition taxes and fees on all levels, town, state, and federal, here in the city. If you look around the city, you'll see many underutilized buildings and vacancies that are often long-term in nature. You do not, however, see many houses vacant for long, because the housing market here in Attleboro has been very, very strong, which helps us all. Conversely, a split tax rate is also an incentive to build more residential homes in the city, which further increases the demands and burdens on the city's resources, such as the schools, where business growth adds to the tax base without utilizing a lot of those already limited resources, especially the overcrowding of schools. So the United Regional Chamber would like you to continue in what you've done over the past few years and shorten that gap between the commercial and the residential tax rates. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Lang? Councilor Hegney.
Thank you, Jack, for coming in. You've been here forever. Historically, you know, you talk.
I'm old, but I'm not that old, Chair.
But yeah, with all due respect, and I mean that respectfully, you talk about the dual tax rate. Why did that begin in the foot? Because I know we've been trying to close the gap, and you're talking about not having. But why? When did? What was the genesis
To start the dual tax rate?
Yeah.
Okay, that was way before my time.
Okay.
And that was determined by this council.
Okay, because that's why, looking back historically at the factors around why we had a dual tax rate at that time, and why now currently over the years we have been trying to close the gap. We can't go probably, like you said, totally to split it all. We'll try to go
That's
as much as we
utopia.
can, but we have always listened to kind of lower it.
Well, I think part of the reason of that is we've lost some major companies here in Attleboro. You know, and that's not through any fault of anybody in this room or anybody sitting here. It's called the economy. You know, when you can find lower labor costs, and some just flat went out of business. You know, the economy's been tough. Every one of us have suffered, but I think that's one of the major reasons, because we've lost a lot of the major corporations here in Attleboro.
Okay, that can,
Thank you. Did you have a follow-up?
just
Sure.
one little, and I know you've been having a lot of openings, grand openings, so you've been getting more people joining the commerce also, I see, which is a positive? Okay.
That's what we're supposed to do.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Conti.
So Jack, I happen to know that the vacancy rate for the Miles Standish Industrial Park in Taunton is 5% because I personally conducted the survey. But I was stunned last week when a Attleboro real estate broker told me that there were no commercial sites available in Attleboro. Not a
Is
single.
his name Pinocchio?
No. No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that in my outside voice? I'm sorry.
Welcome back, Jack.
This broker was telling me that they had a client that wanted to buy a building in Attleboro, and they could not find a single space available.
I don't know what hemisphere he's coming from, but we have plenty of space here in Attleboro. There's plenty of buildings that are available. I just placed 2 companies myself with 3 quick phone calls. So there's plenty of space available. Whoever that Attleboro realtor is, tell him to go back over with the marijuana industry and keep on doing what he's doing.
Thank you, Jack.
That concludes my question.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you for your
Jack,
time.
would you just ensure that Linda has a copy of any written? Thank you.
Thank you.
I will miss
Anyone else
them.
to speak in favor? Is there anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in opposition?
Mr. President, I received a phone call and a letter that the constituent was asking to be read. Can I do that?
Was that received by the clerk's office?
Well, they tried to submit the letter to the clerk's office, but the clerk would only take the letter in writing and signature.
I never heard from him. He didn't come into my office.
Wait a minute.
I came into Linda's office.
Hang on, 1 second, if I may.
Yep.
So from what I understand, I was briefed about this morning,
Okay, good.
and the process is, it may be antiquated, we may not like it, but we can't fix it right now today.
Yep.
The process is that it must come into the clerk's office, it must be stamped by the clerk, sent to the council through that process.
In order to be read into the
Not,
record.
that's right.
Okay.
And
I'm
so,
glad we made that clear.
Thank you.
Because I'm sure they'll be watching.
yes, I'm
Thank you.
certain of it. But I did get some confirmation today on that, so thank you very much. I also received that same
Okay, good.
correspondence, thank you. Any other questions, comments? No. Let me go back to
Against.
in opposition.
In opposition.
Is there anyone else here to speak? We did in favor. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Neither for nor against? Seeing no one, Councilor Hegney, would you like to close this public hearing?
Please.
Okay, so we will close this public hearing, and I understand, Councilor
Next
Hegney,
week.
next week you've called for a committee meeting on this at 6 or 6:30?
I think 6. I think we
6:30.
said 6.
Okay, perfect. So we're all aware, next week, on the 21st, there will be a committee meeting at 6:30 for budget and appropriations. So this public hearing is closed.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Acting President.
Thank you. Moving on to communications from the mayor's communication.
November 14th, 2017. Excuse me. Dear municipal councilors, I respectfully submit a communication from Executive Director of Contributory Retirement Board, Leslie Ring, regarding the need for funds to cover the expense of an employee during his military deployment. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer $581.03 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account Citywide Military Retirement Credit. Upon approval, the available budget, I think it should be balanced, in the reserve fund for transfer will be $130,741.27. Copies in your packets.
Thank you. City Property and Claims, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from City Collector Deborah Marcuccio regarding the need for funds for 117 accounts to be recorded at the Registry of Deeds due to the tax-taking process. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $3,542.20 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account Collector Recordings. Upon approval, the available balance in reserve fund for transfer will be $127,199.07. Copies in your packets.
Thank you. City and Property and Claims, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Veteran Services Ken Batcheter regarding a donation of $50 in Stop and Shop gift certificates from Larry Qualia. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept these generous donations to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packets.
Thank you. City Property and Claims, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Chief of Police Kyle P. Hegney regarding the need for additional funding to train and outfit one police recruit due to an unexpected vacancy. The tuition to attend a full-time police academy for each officer is $3,700. In addition, according to the police union contract, each new employee shall be granted an initial uniform allowance sufficient for the purchase of the uniforms required by the Police Recruit Training Academy. The cost for the uniforms and equipment for each officer is $1,000. As part of the hiring process, this recruit police officer will need medical screening at a cost of $1,346.87. Each new police officer is also issued a set of police badges. The associated cost for breast badge and hat badge is $167.15. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer $6,214.02 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to the following: $3,700 to account Police Academy tuition, $1,000 to account police uniforms, $1,346.87 to account police medical consultation, $167.15 to account police supply. Upon approval, the available balance in the reserve fund for transfer will be $120,985.05. Copies in your packets.
Thank you. Public Safety and Emergency Management, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Veteran Services Ken Batcheter regarding the donation of $500 in Stop and Shop gift certificates from the Attleboro Elks Lodge 1014. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept these generous donations to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packets.
Thank you. City Property and Claims, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Wastewater Superintendent Paul Kennedy regarding the need to replenish funds on previously expended professional service. Professional service funds were used to pay for an unanticipated infiltration and inflow report that is due at the end of the calendar year to satisfy a Mass DEP requirement. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to appropriate $17,500 from account Wastewater Enterprise Fund retained earnings to account Wastewater Professional Services. Copies in your packet.
Thank you. Public Works, please.
Sincerely, Kevin J. Dumas, Mayor. And then I have another communication from the Mayor. Number 2, November 14th, 2017, dear municipal councilors. Please be advised that the state's cherry sheet for fiscal year 2018 was amended after the fiscal year 2018 budget was approved. In total, the final state and county assessments are now $44,621 less than what was submitted during the budget process. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer $44,621 to account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer from the following accounts: $12 from intergovernmental mosquito control, $44,275 from intergovernmental school choice, and $334 from account intergovernmental charter school. Upon approval, the available balance in the reserve fund for transfer will be $165,606.05. Please note, in order to properly record this activity on the fiscal year 2018 tax recapitulation, this measure must be voted prior to the submission of the fiscal year 2018 tax rate.
Thank you. Budget and Appropriations, please.
During the preparation of the annual budgets, assessors across the Commonwealth provide budget officials with an estimate of the new growth increase in the community's Proposition 2.5 levy limit so that a preliminary limit can be calculated and a revenue estimated established. However, boards of assessors are required to report final new growth each year as a part of setting the tax rate. I have been informed that the Board of Assessors has submitted to the Department of Revenue a final new growth number of $1,491,910, which is $391,910 greater than the estimate carried in the fiscal year 2018 budget. Therefore, I am hereby requesting that your honorable body approve a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $391,910 to account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer. Upon approval, the available balance in the reserve fund for transfer will be $557,516.05. In order to properly reflect this measure on the fiscal year 2018 tax recapitulation, it is necessary to vote this matter prior to submission of the fiscal year 2018 tax rate.
Thank you. Budget and appropriations, please.
Sincerely, Kevin J. Dumas, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other communications?
There is one other communication, and this is for a 2018 renewal Class 2 auto license from Best Buy Automotive and Tires, Inc., 925 and 931 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass., for 4 customer parking spaces and 20 display spaces.
Thank you. License committee, please.
And that is all.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Also, thank you.
Moving right on to committee reports, the only committee we will recognize this evening is Public Works, and Council President Cook has called for everybody else's committee meetings next week at the appropriate times. Councilor Jackson.
Thank you.
Do you have a point of order, Councilor Reynolds?
Have gentlemen here to speak?
Yes, we're going to do that when we go into committee after Councilor Jackson's done. Yep.
Thank you very much. Reporting for Public Works Committee from the docket of October 17th, 2017. I move to approve the petition from National Grid and Verizon to relocate pole 491120 toward Martin Street to accommodate customer newly installed driveway and to install new joint-owned pole number 4912 and guy wires to service new house at 93 Orange Street.
Second.
Thank you. We just discussed this this evening in committee. This is a house that was recently built, but actually has been waiting to get his power to the house, and it's been held up. So we're taking it out of committee this evening and voting it to the full council this evening, so we can get him all lit up.
Great. Are there any other comments? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Was it a voice vote, Steve?
There was a voice vote.
Yeah, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. I have no further business this evening for the Public Works Committee, but I would like to call for a committee meeting at the appropriate time next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Jackson. Council Blair, did you have?
You need that new business form, or have you got a copy of it?
I have them.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me write. And that was 10. Okay.
We go to committee of the whole now, or
No,
after
we're not doing
the?
committee of the whole tonight.
There is no committee of the
No,
whole
there is
tonight.
It's a special meeting.
I didn't know if that's what Ms.
No,
Reynolds-
Ms. Jackson is waiting for us
No,
to
Ms.
conclude Ms. Reynolds is waiting for us to conclude the special meeting
10-4.
to go into the committee meetings, at which time the Veterans Agent will address the committee and we will proceed.
Terrific.
And unfortunately, we're
Behind.
52 minutes later than we thought we were going to be. So I won't
Terrific.
talk anymore, we'll keep moving.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. New business.
Yep.
Councilor Parika.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Acting President Cooper. I have 2 pieces of new business to present to the council this evening, both co-sponsored by myself and Acting President Cooper. From the supplemental docket of November 21st, 2017, I move to refer the following matter to the administration to review and evaluate the memorandum of understanding on the revenue sharing agreement for the Medicaid reimbursement program.
Second.
Thank you.
Motion's in order, any discussion?
Yes, I would. So as we are all aware, we did receive, it's that time of year where we get our Medicaid disbursement paperwork that goes to typically to budget, and we get our Medicaid sharing. And we've had multiple discussions on this council floor with regards to the memorandum of understanding between the City of Attleboro and the Attleboro School Department dated from March 31st, 1999. So here we are, multiply almost 20 years later. It's time I am strongly encouraging this current administration, the next administration, some administration in between here and there, to be able to take some time and have discussion, not only with the school department, perhaps invite us into the conversation to see if the split is still how it should be, or if it could be increased one way or another. It is my understanding, and this has come to me from residents in the city who would like to see that the split be changed. This is a Medicaid benefit that is created by students in the Attleboro Public Schools who receive services that they get a reimbursement from Medicaid for. This City of Attleboro fronts some of the costs. This year it was expenses in the amount of $50,161.87. The rest of it is made by the administrative staff at the Attleboro schools, as well as by the children that go there. So I think the request has been to adjust the shift so that it benefits the school and the individuals who actually generate these funds from, that's how those funds are generated. So it is my request that we send that to the administration for a recommendation.
Thank you. Is there any other comment? Council Hall?
Yes, I know I looked into this a couple years ago when I first got on the council, and I think that it's good. It's an opportune time because I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about this third-party reimbursement and how this works, and who actually pays for these services. And there's a lot of, it's a very difficult program to manage. You have to have families that are willing to put them in there. But what you will find is that the split, and I think Mr. Conti even brought this up at one point in time, let's just say, I think that the fresh air and sunlight is going to make people really understand that we're getting a benefit with the split that we have right now. So I'll just make that comment now, but I think hopefully when somebody does come in and explains that we'll see that that's the case. And I do appreciate this being brought up, and I think everybody does need to understand what really goes on here. So thank you.
Thank you.
For bringing it forward.
Any other questions? Comments? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. We're going to refer that to the administration.
Thank you, Acting
Just one
President.
second, Council Prickett. Who seconded that, Steve?
Kate.
Kate.
Sarah.
No, it was Kate.
What was Kate then?
I did.
Okay, great, thank you. Council Prickett.
Thank you, Acting President Cooper. From the supplemental docket of November 21st, 2017, I move to refer the following matter to the appropriate committee for study and recommendation to amend Section 10-5.2A prohibited on certain streets as follows. 1, to delete Beagle Club Road, both sides of the entire street, including the cul-de-sac, through January 1st, 2018, with mandatory council review at the second regular meeting of September, and replace with 2, seasonal parking restriction for Beagle Club Road.
Second.
I think it was a tie.
It was. So say it's Jay Jackson. That'd be great.
I think we'll say Jay.
Who do you think?
Council Delesio. Any comments?
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
So as we are all very much aware, the quote sundown clause is coming to Beagle Club Road faster than we can imagine. So it's important to put forward business with regards to managing this. Again, as I've stated before, I've talked to everybody under the sun. I actually had a very interesting conversation with one of the sergeants from the police department who the same recommendations were made 10 years ago that are being made now. We're not really making any headway one way or another. However, we now need to deal with this. We cannot run and hide from this. Us as a collective body need to handle this to the best of our availability. I've spoken, myself, Mr. Delesio, Councilor Cooper, we've spoken with the residents. They have some recommendations that I would like to discuss during committee, provided this is assigned to my committee, or whoever's committee. I'll have the conversation then as well. I am not making a request at this time to have it assigned to the Traffic Study Commission because we're going to need to call for a public hearing. I would like to get the language appropriate, then send it to Traffic Study and call for a public hearing because I'm sure there'll be plenty of people that would like to have a discussion about this. The residents have recommendations. I don't necessarily agree with those recommendations, but it's time for us to vet those out. So everybody push up your sleeves. And let's get to work on this, and we need to try and get it solved before January 1st. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Kudos.
Yes, thank you. Hearing no other discussion, This requires a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 10-0. We're going to refer that to, I'm going to refer that to Transportation and Traffic.
Can you send it to ordinances instead?
Vice President Cooper?
Yes.
It's 9-0.
Oh, what did I say, 10?
Good 10.
Oh, I've been writing 10 all night. Okay.
As if you don't have enough to do.
Council Blair.
Thank you. President Cooper, Acting President Cooper. From the supplemental docket of November 21st, 2017, I move to refer the following item to refer the appropriate committee for study and recommendation that the city adopt an ordinance governing the operation of non-medical marijuana establishments as defined under Mass General
That's general law.
Second.
law.
That was rude.
Chapter 90.
I'm seconding.
Mass General Law, Chapter 94G, Section 1.
Second.
Second.
This
Thank
is
you, Counselor.
co-sponsored by myself and Mr. Cook.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any other additional comments, Council Blair?
I've got a statement here that was formed by President Cook and myself I'd like to read. The purpose of the new business item is to begin preparing an ordinance regulating the location and operation of marijuana establishments as defined under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 94G, Section 1. As you know, currently, the state expects to begin receiving applications to operate such establishments on April 1st, 2018, with licenses expected to allow operation beginning July 1, 2018. The state has been slow in developing guidelines for the communities, and time is quickly running out. As a city, we have the responsibility to our citizens to regulate businesses and their locations. The basic framework of a draft ordinance has been developed, and additional work will be needed before a public hearing can be held. Further, the city will need to include state guidelines once they've been finalized. Therefore, the reason for introducing this business now is to ensure the council properly begin development of an ordinance so that only additional tweaking will be needed once the state finalizes their work. I must emphasize that time is of the essence, given the beginning of a new term and the issue of the high school project that is certain to take center stage early in 2018. The ordinance addresses a zoning issue and must be assigned to the Zoning and Land Use Committee as recommended by both the city solicitor and the Attorney General's office.
Any
Okay.
additional comments?
I'll
Council
just give a personal view. I'd like to see this done as soon as possible. I favored medical marijuana. I don't favor my own personal beliefs having shops located throughout the city to sell it. I don't believe in financing our schools from revenue from drug dealers. So I would hope that this would be assigned to committee and that it would be worked on appropriately fast so that we can meet those deadlines.
Thank you. Any other comments, Council Blair?
No.
Thank you. I saw Council Conti first, then Council Hall.
Thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt you a second. I just wanted to be the second because
I had a
wholly
little
support
fumble,
this.
you know, comes with age.
I totally support this. And I said this when we had a new business for a moratorium, that's not the approach to take. This is the approach to take. Let's get to work. Let's start that hard work because there's going to be a lot of discussions that are not going to be easy. And that's what we're here to do. And we've got to, some of us have a short time here, and this is your opportunity to get your input in before you leave the council. I mean, you always will be able to put input into the council, but this is the way we get to control how we handle this. And it's very important that we get started on this because I think we want to be ahead so that when the state does finalize their requirements, we're 90% there. And I completely agree with you, Councilor Blaze. And Councilor Cooper, thank you for putting the new business in. I would have done it if I had thought of it. Good job. Thank you very much. And that concludes my comments.
Councilor Hall?
Yes, I really appreciate this coming forward, and, you know, you've seen sort of the difficulties that we've had with the ordinance that we've written just for medical marijuana. It is a difficult thing to do, and as much and how hard we've tried, and I've worked with, you know, all the department heads that have also all had input into this and have made their comments about this. But I think it is important that we do put a moratorium on this so that we do ensure that we have everything in the right place. There will be a lot of new business cleaning up the medical marijuana ordinance, if you would. So I think since we haven't fully 100% get this to exactly where we want it, but I do tell you that yeoman's work has been put into making sure that we protected this city nevertheless, that I think this is the right thing to do for now.
Thank you. Any other comments? No? No? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 9-0. That is going to be referred to Zoning and Land Use Committee.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. I think that's it. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. Council Perica. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. So we are going to go into committee. Thank you. Sarah's up first. Sarah, let me move if you want.
I can do
Are you
it.
sure?
Yeah, we've
Okay.
waited a long time. Okay, so I'd like to call to order the City Property and Planning Committee at 8:35. And right off the bat, even before reading from the docket or anything, I'd like to bring forward our Veterans Agent, Ken Battisher, as well as two gentlemen from the Elks, who I believe is Scott Mercier and Mr. George Chick Souza. And I would love you to come up front and talk to us a little bit about this great donation that the Elks are making, the 2017 Subaru Legacy, which I think is just great. And it's valued at approximately $18,000. So we're going to hear a little bit more about that. And first of all, I just want to thank you for being so patient, because I know we asked you to be here at 7:30, and here we are an hour later. So without much more ado, it's yours.
Well, thank you, Councilor Reynolds, and thank you, Acting President Cooper, and other members of the Municipal Council here. I assure you that I am just as passionate about helping our veterans as our Chief City Assessor is about tax valuations and all of that, but this matter probably will not require nearly as much discussion. So the basis of this donation is to support one of my favorite programs that we have in the Veteran Services Department. And as the council may remember, in 2007, there was a monumental effort that was put forth both by the Attleboro Elks. Peter Blair was instrumental in that, and the estate of Walter J. Amos, whose name appears on the side of our van. And as the matter predates me, I can't tell the story nearly as well as some others in the room, but I am ultimately very appreciative that we have the opportunity. And what that ended up resulting in was the donation of a 2007 Ford E250 van, which is a 7-passenger wheelchair accessible van. And we use that van to pick up veterans from their home, take them to their VA medical appointments in Providence, in Brockton, and in the Boston VA hospitals. And our veterans here in Attleboro are afforded health care that they probably would not have access to otherwise due to the 100+ volunteer hours that are donated to the Veteran Services Department in the form of both scheduling, receiving those phone calls, and driving our veterans to and from the hospitals, and waiting for their appointments to be done and taking them right back home. It's a concierge level service, and it's just absolutely amazing. I'm so thankful that we have that opportunity. It gets us about an average of 35 different veterans to and from their appointments each month, and that constitutes about 52 appointments, so we've got some repeat usage there each month. It's important to note that the donation of the proposed donation of this 2017 Subaru Legacy is timely. The van that we've been driving for the last 10 years has about 77,000 miles on it. And if we were to have to replace that van outright today, it would cost us about $75,000. So this is a program that is worth keeping, and it's worth exploring avenues that we can keep the wear and tear down on that van. And a good example of that is I just had to replace 4 ball joints, which wasn't cheap, and a wheel speed sensor. And it's just things, little parts are starting to go on it, and it's something that we pay attention to and want to make sure stays safe for all the veterans who need that. So a little bit of intel on the Subaru Legacy that is proposed to be donated. It's an estimated value of $18,000, and my cohorts in crime here from the Attleboro Elks, the exalted ruler George Sousa and Scott Mercier, the chair of the Veterans Affairs Committee at the Elks, are prepared to speak a little bit more in detail about how that came about. But I have looked into some of the questions that may arise as to what's this going to look like for the city. And the only real cost that I could identify, because overall this is going to be a cost reduction measure, because it's going to be cheaper on gas mileage and cheaper on wear and tear and much more comfortable for our veterans. But the only cost that I could really look into and really put my finger on was the cost of insurance. And the mayor's office helped, Allison in the mayor's office helped me look into that, and we reached out to the insurance agent. That's going to be about $916 for the annual policy, and if we were to approve the donation as soon as possible, it would be a little bit over $600 just to add it for the remainder of this year. So we could put that into usage almost right away. So with that, I would like to turn it over to some of the folks here, with your permission, Councilor.
Yes, please do.
Thank you for having us tonight. Just a little history on it. 10 years ago, Councilor Blair, myself, and everybody with the Elks bought the van. Talking over the last couple of years, we've noticed there is a lot of usage on the van, and one of our big concerns is maintaining that. So we at the Elks, talking with Councilor Blair, with Ken, with Mayor Dumas, we decided to take on a fundraising campaign last June. We did this all within the Lodge of Elks. We ran multiple fundraisers, which consisted of an impersonator show, an outdoor concert, a murder mystery night. We did a paint night. We did multiple raffles, and we held quite a big golf tournament that got us over the hump back in August. Everything is fully paid for. This will definitely take the wear and tear off of the van. And we as Elks, as an organization, have a motto: as long as there is a veteran, we will never forget them. It's one of our tried and true credos that we conduct our business by. And as we all know, we have a lot of aging Vietnam-era veterans. We have all of our folks from the Middle East coming back, and God only knows what's going to happen with Korea. It's probably going to be something where you're going to see a lot more need for this. We were able to get a great deal on the car. It's a nice car. It's all-wheel drive, so with the winter months, Ken's people driving it will be a little safer. And it's something that I hope you will accept with on our behalf to the city and to the veterans for what we can do for them. Thank you. Good?
Oh. Are you good? Are you good? All right, Peter, would you like to speak?
I'd just like to commend Scott and the Elks for all they've done. I know, I think I sat in the same chair when the van come up, and we had one of your counterparts say that the van we had at that point was ready for the junkyard, that we used it, and I spoke up. I went to see Scott, and together we raised over $40,000 in less than a month.
Amazing, that's great.
I mean, the pouring from the community and the businesses was outstanding. The Elks were there to sponsor and help. We ran a number of functions in a short period of time down at the Elks, raised some money. I know Scott and I have talked about a car for a long time.
We're going on 5-6 years now.
Not that I am an active member of the Elks anymore, but I still believe it's one of the greatest organizations in this country for what they do for veterans and college scholarships for children and whatnot. So I commend you, Scott, for carrying that flag on.
Oh, thank you. But it's not just me, it's the entire Elks Lodge. It's no one person.
Every committee needs a leader, Scott. You did a great job.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you so much for coming in and spending an hour and a half waiting for us to get to you. I really appreciate
Vice
it.
President Cooper.
I guess we have.
We have a bunch
Oh,
of
I'm
questions,
sorry,
but
Mr. Conti, Councilor Conti.
I think it was
Excuse me, who raised a hand?
me, but you can't see me because I'm behind you.
Okay,
but-
so, Mr. Cooper, you first, Councilor Cooper.
Thank you. So thank you very much for coming in. This is just a beyond a great thing for the veterans of the city of Attleboro. And so I'm going to just be somewhat preemptive and say, not if, but when this gets approved and when it goes through the full council, when do we get to showcase this to the community? Sort of what's your timeline on delivering?
As of right now, the car we're purchasing it from Anchor Subaru. The owner, Bob Benoit, was gracious enough. We've been going for 3 weeks ago. I went up and spoke with him. The car is ready to go. The only thing is, we haven't cut the checks to them until the city will accept title. Because if, God forbid, somebody said no and it got shot down, here we would have a car with a title with the City of Attleboro and nothing to do with the car. So as soon as you approve it as a council of a whole, we will have the title cut. I've requested from Ken the city seals. We are going to have it lettered. There will be no cost to the city. We'll put the city seals on, Veterans Department. It will have the Elks logo. It will have sponsored by the Attleboro Elks and Anchor Subaru, because the owner, Bob, was gracious enough to cut the price way down for us. And that's all we're waiting for, is the city as a whole.
Great opportunity to help serve the veterans. That's great. Thank you. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. Councilor Conti.
So Steve, thank you very much.
Scott,
sorry. For leading your organization to this effort. I know how difficult it is to raise money. Trust me.
Oh, it is.
How many members are in the Elks organization?
What are we up to? We're 850 right now.
Wow, it's a big organization.
Yeah. We're one of the largest in our district. There's 7 members.
I'm really happy to see it running strong, and that's a lot of that is due to its leadership. So that's a personal compliment.
This is our exalted ruler right here.
Exalted ruler deserves a kudo, because this is a very worthwhile cause. You're a great organization to do it, and we appreciate it very much. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you.
Councilor Delicio.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I don't want to belabor the points that were made here today, but what I do want to say is, over the spring, I had the opportunity, I made a new friend, a veteran. I'll just use his first name, Marty. Ken, I think you know who I'm talking about. We spent some time talking, and he really went in depth about what this van means to him and the impact it has on his quality of life. So, there's a whole different level and layer to what you folks are doing, which is just absolutely amazing. And to be able to go through and impact the lives of the veterans so they can get to their appointments, so they can be able to get their prescriptions, whatever it might be. I mean, it's something that I don't think enough attention can be drawn to. So kudos. And that doesn't even begin to describe the thanks that you all deserve.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it goes without saying how I feel about this. So
obviously.
I want to thank you. I know this has been in the works for a few years. I know the difficulties with the vans. I've been on the van before with some of the veterans that have been there and the drivers and everything. I also want to give kudos to the Elks. One of the reasons I joined the Elks was because they were very, very strong veteran supporters, and I really appreciate they're part of that organization. So thank you for everything that you've done for the veterans.
Thank you. You're welcome. And we'd just like to say, the lodge itself, and it's just what we as an organization do. That's why we take these on. And like I said, our veterans are one of our top 3 priorities. Our seniors and our children in the community is what we raise all our money for and give it back to the community. So. Thank you.
Councilor Parika.
Thank you, Chairwoman Reynolds. I just would like to disclose that, of course, I'm 150% in support of this, but I also need to disclose that I am a member of the Elks 1014. So
Yes.
There you have it.
Yes, there's 5 of the 9 of you here that are Elks
Right.
members.
But as a voting member, I need to make sure that I do disclose that information, so that's, there you have it.
And
There's two other members on the board.
Counselor Jackson.
Oh, I'm sorry. One more.
Dick and Scotty, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You hold up to the motto, Elks Care, Elks Share. Yeah, thank you very, very much.
I guess there's nothing else to say, except you guys are the best.
Oh, and I'm a member of the Elks
Yep,
team, still in good standing.
Thank you so much for coming in, and thank you so much for doing the work that you do in this.
Like a
in
round
this
of
area.
applause.
Get it,
It
get it
won't be,
purchased.
it'll be quick, it will
All right.
not be long.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ken.
What did it say?
Ken.
Show up with the plate.
You spoke up the other day on Veterans.
Okay.
Awesome.
So you need to
All right,
vote.
okay, so,
Surgery was today.
I'm going to read the motion. I entertain a motion in accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to accept the generous donation, a 2017 Subaru Legacy valued at approximately $18,000 from the Attleboro Elks Lodge 1014 to the Veterans Department.
Second?
I don't think there's any more that needs to be said. I think we've heard it all, and we're all pleased that this is happening. So with no further ado, can I get a voice vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and obviously no one's in opposition, so that motion passes, and we will vote it out next week's meeting.
Great.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, and since that isn't the only one, I'm going to move on. From the docket of November 21st, 2017, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to allow the Attleboro Cultural Council to expend approximately $18,300 from the Massachusetts Cultural Council grant and any future grant amendments.
Second.
Okay. As you might have remembered from committee, this is money that is theirs, and they use it periodically for different things. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? The motion passes. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to accept the donation of $250 in Stop and Shop food gift cards from an anonymous donor to the Health Department.
Second?
Thank you. Ms. Parika, I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
It is.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, motion passes. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to accept the donation of 50 yoga mats with an estimated value of $500 from Empower Fitness in Uxbridge to the Studley Elementary School for student use.
Second.
Thank you. Again, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. You two are vying for the second.
We're not vying, we're going back, we're sharing, we're going back and forth.
That motion passes. From the supplemental docket of November 7th, 2017, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to accept the donation of $250 in Stop and Shop gift certificate to the Veterans Department from an anonymous donor.
Second?
Thank you. Again, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to accept the following donations to the school department. Office chairs from the Attleboro Social Security Office with a current estimated value of $500. One used, I can read these all three together, Mr. Cooper? Councilor Cooper? One used Matter Mod T3D printer from Eric and Roxanne Hanna to Coella Middle School with an estimated value of $250, and books gifted to APS from the bookstore An Unlikely Story in Plainville, Mass. With a total value of $103.96.
Second.
Okay. Thank you for that second, Councilor Conti. And again, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. We thank all of these people that take the time and businesses to donate, no matter what the value is. It's always important that people continue to come forward with these kinds of gifts. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes, and that is all that I have tonight for the City Property and Claims Committee, so I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Okay. And I will make that adjournment at 8:53.
Aye.
Aye.
In favor, thank you. And we are adjourned.
I'd like to call Personnel and Human Service Committee to order at 8:53. I have two items this evening that I'm bringing out, and I'm sitting in for Acting President Cooper and a very shy Council Blair. From the docket of November 21st, 2017, I entertain a motion to confirm the appointment of Mahesh Patel of 20 Shamrock Circle, Attleboro, to the Board of Library Trustees, term to expire February 2018.
Second.
Thank you. This appointment has come down it came down 2 weeks ago, right? 2 weeks ago to the committee. We're going to invite the two candidates, because I have another one coming in as well. They're going to come down to your committee meeting next week. You're going to have them next week before the regular meeting? The following week. So 2 weeks from now, we'll have them come, so we get to meet them. But the library trustees are down a couple of members right now, so they're desperate. So hopefully, we will approve this, and we'll have someone new, and they'll have a full quorum. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. From the supplemental docket of November 7th, 2017, I entertain a motion to confirm the appointment of Nigel Popat of 19 Carnegie Way to fill an expired term on the Cultural Council, term to expire February 2020.
Second.
Thank you. Same goes for Nigel as Mahesh, so we'll have them down in 2 weeks. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and that concludes the business for the Personnel and Human Services Committee. I'd like to call for an adjournment at 8:55.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 8:55. Thank you.
Who's next?
Jay, you canceled?
I'm canceling ordinances, but I have budget.
You gotta cancel.
Yeah.
Oh, you gotta cancel that.
I have budget, I have transportation and license, both with a bit of it, some bit stuff, so.
Jay,
I have three pretty quick.
okay, go ahead. Why don't budget
I'm
go
going
first,
through.
and then we'll,
Intervening a public safety emergency management cancel this.
great, thank you.
Call Budget and Appropriations Committee to order at 8:56. I have three motions. From the docket of November 21st, 2017, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $9,465 from account 112410000-578300 Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 1650100-524011 Park and Forestry Maintenance of Buildings for funds for the repair and restoration of 8 columns on the Newell Shelter in Capron Park.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Last week Dennis Walsh sent down a memo, the request, the columns in the Newell Shelter, have exposed rebar. In order to preserve this wonderful asset to the city, we need to have the repair work done before winter comes in, especially where we had some snow flurries this morning. We know it's coming sooner than later. The scope of the work includes prep, saw, cut, and cleaning of exposed rebar as needed, the application of Armortech coating on the reinforcement, then prep the existing concrete substrate, apply the bonding agent, then Silca concrete patch material will be applied to the 8 columns, as will a finish to match the existing columns. So it'll all be uniform, safe, repaired, and done. So, any other questions, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Come on, anyone else?
Aye.
Anyone else? Thanks, guys. Anyone opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. All right, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $1,800 from account 1124100-578300 Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 1610100-524011 Library Maintenance of Buildings to replenish funds on previously expended repair work and repainting the entryway due to the installation of an upgraded fire alarm panel. Thank you. So this is work that was already done. We needed a new upgrade at the fire alarm and the fire panel at the library. It was done. This is just to replenish those funds. Straightforward stuff. All right, any questions, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion passes, thank you. And finally, from the supplemental docket of November 7th, 2017, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to appropriate $116,632.14 from account 1000-35900, undesignated fund balance, free cash, general government, to account 13001-000-551011, school appropriation, Medicaid, to fund the municipal sharing agreement.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Blair. Again, this is something we do every year as the new business that was brought out earlier. This is just a precursor to that, something we have to do to be able to enter into the agreement that we already have. Councilor Cooper?
Just to piggyback on that comments about the new business, I'm excited that we will again put some fresh air and sunlight on what this means, how it works, the work required to administer it, and where the funds come from and go to, and then make a decision about whether this is the right split or not. But this is the amount for this year, and I think the budget depends on making this happen. So for this year, we do it, but
Right.
there's a expectation that there will be some serious discussion about what happens in subsequent years. Thank you.
I think it's the appropriate time to have the discussion. This council, previous councils, we've talked about it, but as you said, this is an integral piece of the budget, so it's something that at this point we need to do. But thank you to both for bringing that in, that business in. So. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. I would call for an adjournment at 9 o'clock.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned at 9 o'clock. Thank you.
Why don't you go? No, I'm gonna go, but it's just a discussion, so why don't we clean up your licenses and traffic, and then we'll do capital improvements.
Sounds good. All right. Reporting for transportation and traffic this evening, I call us to order at 9 p.m. The members of my committee are myself and Ms. Reynolds with Acting President Cooper. Excuse me. The motions that I have tonight are kind of housekeeping items. We're taking out, we have to remove yield signs before we can put the stop sign that we already passed. It's like, I don't know how many times we have to vote on Patterson or O'Donnell Drive, but here we are doing it anyway. A small update from yesterday. There is a piece of new business that President Cook introduced regarding, excuse me, regarding parking issues and erecting the proper signage on Riverbank Road. President Cook did come to our Traffic Study Commission meeting last night. Unfortunately, we didn't have a quorum, so we opted to just postpone that until December 11th. However, I expect that when we have a decision from the Traffic Study Commission, we really need to kind of hammer that out before they pave that area in the springtime. We want to have everything in place so they can put the right signs up and everything like that. So we'll be moving on that quickly. From the docket of November 7th, 2017, I entertain a motion to adopt the following ordinance, provided there is no warranted objections at the public hearing to be held on November 21st. Ordinance relative to yield signs, be it ordained by the municipal council that section 10-4.16 yield signs, chapter 10, motor vehicles and parking of the revised ordinances of the city of Attleboro, we hereby amend by deleting the following: eastbound and westbound drivers on O'Donnell Drive at Patterson Street.
Second.
Thank you. So again, in an effort to get this taken care of in a quick manner, we can vote this out of committee tonight. We will hold the public hearing next week, and I can vote it out in front of the full council next Tuesday. I have no expectation that we will have anyone coming in and saying, no, we want the yield signs to stay, being that the area neighbors have expressed that they want the stop sign that we already passed. So this is merely a housekeeping issue. Any questions or concerns? I move for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. I entertain a motion, again, this will be, we have a public hearing next week. I entertain a motion to adopt the following ordinance, provided there's no warranted objections at the public hearing to be held on November 21st. Ordinance relative to multi-way stop signs, be it ordained by the municipal council that section 10-4.12, multi-way stop signs, chapter 10, motor vehicles and parking of the revised ordinances of the city of Attleboro, be hereby amended by deleting the following: Gregory, Drive, and Essex.
Second.
Thank you. So when we brought this, again, this is another housekeeping piece of business. When we brought this in, there was some slight confusion, and it came in as a multi-way stop where it's only a single stop sign. So we need to make that correction to that as well. Any questions or concerns? All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. I entertain a motion to adopt the following ordinance, provided there is no warranted objections at the public hearing to be held on November 21st, 2017. Ordinance relative to isolated stop signs, be it ordained by the municipal council to amend section 10-4.11, isolated stop signs, chapter 10, motor vehicles and parking of the revised ordinances of the city of Attleboro, be hereby amended by inserting the following: westbound drivers on Essex Street at Gregory Drive.
Second.
Thank you very much. So now we're taking what we passed out, putting in what we wanted to pass in the first place. Any questions or concerns? All those in favor? Aye. The motion passes. All right, so just as another footnote, December 11th will be our next Traffic Study Commission meeting. So if anyone has any questions, traffic related, new business, let me know. I call for an adjournment at 9:05.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And we are adjourned at 9:05. Reporting for the License Committee, I call the License Committee order at 9:05. Our members are Parika and Conti, and then I'm sure that Acting President Cooper will be back. We also have senior member, Councilor Blair. Let's see. From the docket of November 21st, 2017, I entertain a motion to approve the application for a 2008 renewal application from Sunstar Vending Incorporated, 600 Providence Highway, Dedham, Mass. for Papagenos Incorporated, 103 Pleasant Street, Attleboro, Mass. for one key master.
Second.
It's a cool little machine that my kids like to spend a lot of money on, and they never get any prizes. It works. It's a money generator. So they're there. It works just fine. Everything's lovely. Any questions or concerns?
That's a good way to put it.
No one's complained.
No one's complaining. It's fun. There you have it.
Keeps the kids quiet.
For a couple minutes. All those in favor?
I can ask for more money.
Then you shove a piece of pizza in their face because they can't make a request when their mouth is full, so it's okay. Oh, we're getting silly now. It's getting late. I move for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I entertain a motion to approve the following applications for 2008 renewal Class 1 auto license from National Van Builders Incorporated, 7284 Pine Street, 7 Parker Street, Attleboro, Mass. for 8 customer parking spaces and 45 display spaces. And Priority Automotive LLC DBA Cerrone Chevrolet Buick GMC Truck, 103 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass. for 84 customer parking spaces and 288 display spaces.
Second.
Thank you very much, Councilor Conti. As you will hear me say repeatedly over the next 5 minutes or so, I did go to these locations. I made sure that their lot layout was matching what their lot was actually doing. Everything seems to be in order, and I have no problem issuing a renewal. Any questions or concerns about this one?
None.
None. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I entertain a motion to approve the application for a 2017. Nope. We gotta hold that one. Anything with JD by Ryder on it, we have to hold. So, I entertain a motion to approve the following applications for 2018 renewal Class 2 auto licenses. So I'm going to read these all into committee. We have multiples, and I just would like to take a moment and say that I'm very grateful to Councilor Conti. He took a handful of them, about six or seven of them, and handled those for me, which made things much easier. So I appreciate that very much. I will, at the time that I read this, I will indicate which ones Mr. Conti went to. From Seekonk Gas and Repair Incorporated, doing business as 123 Mobile, 300 County Street, Attleboro, Mass, for 4 customer parking spaces and 9 display spaces. C&A Millennium Motors Incorporated, 1844 County Street, Attleboro, Mass, for 10 customer parking spaces and 8 display spaces. Cartown USA, 280 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass, for 9 customer parking spaces and 20 display spaces. Classic Auto Sales LLC, 1100 Oak Hill Avenue, Attleboro, Mass, for 5 customer parking spaces and 23 display spaces. Marcus J. Vitale, doing business as Greco's Auto, 83 Dickens Street, Attleboro, Mass, for 10 customer parking spaces and 31 display spaces. Greenlight Auto Sales Incorporated, 650 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass, for 10 customer parking spaces and 49 display spaces. Excuse me. You sound awful. J Motor Group Incorporated, 1850.
I'll read it.
That's all right.
Okay.
J Motor Group Incorporated, 1856 County Street, Attleboro, Mass, for 4 customer parking spaces and 20 display spaces. Jeff Millett Auto Center Incorporated, doing business as JMAC, 30 Man Street, Attleboro, Mass, for 4 customer parking spaces and 23 display spaces. Attleboro Collision Center Incorporated, doing business as KAR Auto Sales, 50 Falmouth Street, Attleboro, Mass, for 7 customer parking spaces and 9 display spaces. Landy's Enterprise LLC, doing business as Landy's Family Auto Sales, 859 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass, for 9 customer parking spaces and 27 display spaces. Thank you, Mr. Conti. Limrock Motors. Limerock, thank you. Motors LLC, 722 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass, for 3 customer parking spaces and 10 display spaces. Also, Mr. Conti visited that one. Looney Tuned Auto Sales, 828 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass, for 11 customer parking spaces and 34 display spaces. Also, thank you to Mr. Conti. Michael A. Zeraco, doing business as Mike's Automotive, 801 South Main Street, Attleboro, Mass, for 10 customer parking spaces and 15 display spaces. David Montenegro, doing business as Old School Auto Sales, 187 Cumberland Avenue, Attleboro, Mass, for 4 customer parking spaces and 16 display spaces. Mario Fario, doing business as Pine Crest Motors, 2117 County Street, Attleboro, Mass, for 4 customer parking spaces and 15 display spaces. Raymar Auto Sales Incorporated, 923 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass, for 33 display spaces and 7 customer parking spaces. Thank you to Mr. Conti. Route 123 Village Auto Sales, 1076 Pleasant Street, Attleboro, Mass, for 15 customer parking spaces and 15 display spaces. Ryan's Auto Sales Incorporated, 537 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass, for 3 customer parking spaces and 15 display spaces. Again, Mr. Conti. State Line Auto Brokers Incorporated, 115 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass, for 6 customer parking spaces and 42 display spaces. Blue and White Motors Incorporated, 1815 County Street, Attleboro, Mass, for 4 customer parking spaces and 15 display spaces.
Second.
Thank you very much, Mr. Conti. Again, I stated I either drove by, I went in, I spoke to the manager or a representative. One of my favorite ones was that I went to Blue and White Motors today, and that's on Lower County Street. It was pristine, but my favorite, they had a sign on the door. It says, "Gone hunting, back on the 16th." So I didn't actually get to speak to anyone at that location. However, I appreciated the sign on the door. So I enjoyed that very much. Councilor Conti, do you have some comments?
I do. I visited Lime Rock Motors, 722 Washington Street, and Daniel there is expanding his lot. So he wants to go through this process first, get the license for this, and then he's going to have a site plan prepared by Tilton, cut down trees, do some grading, put in some lighting, and he's going to add 200 cars. So he's going to really expand. Where he threw me was that he wants to get a car rental license, and I have no clue
what that is.
I have no clue how to get Attleboro. Does Attleboro have a car rental? Have you ever heard of it?
Never heard of a car rental license.
So we do have one in the city that is renting cars.
I don't think it's
Advanced Auto? No?
No, that's auto parts store.
Oh.
So we don't have like an enterprise or anything here in the city. If we
No.
want to rent
North
vehicles,
Attleboro
it would be
did.
North Attleboro.
Should
So we would.
They had
So,
one.
so he wants to get into the business of renting cars. And that means we need to ask the president to ask the city solicitor to give us the chapter and verse for regulation, local adoption of regulation of car rental dealers. Okay? So would you make a note to send a note to? Yep.
Actually, I'm the chairperson, so hold on
That's
one
right,
second.
you are.
If you would like, just, if you wouldn't mind, guys, thanks. Had you completed your comments on that?
No, I have more.
Hold on one
of my
second,
vi-
Peter.
Of my visits.
Sure.
So we need to find out from the city solicitor how we locally regulate
Rentals.
Rentals.
right. Looney Tunes is fine, Raymar's fine, Ryan's fine, Tom at State Line Auto Brokers, and I want to show you this, and Council Cooper, you might be familiar with this. This is State Line Auto Brokers is on Route 1, almost on the Rhode Island line, right next to State Line Scrap. And they occupy the space right at the corner of Route 1 and Westminster Avenue. And they have a lot that is jam-packed full of cars. And this is a real experience. They are expanding to the lot behind them, so they're applying for a permit. I drove through this back lot. I have never seen so many cars in such a small space. They've got them actually parked right up bumper to bumper, I mean, touching each other. It's amazing how they pack these cars in here. And I don't see any problem with that. I mean, it's right next to State Line Scrap, Chartier Avenue, Westminster Avenue. I mean, it is truly an automobile storage area. And
May I ask you a question?
Yes.
So as we have the lot layout here, there's nothing in that lot,
Right.
but they're parking cars there now.
right, about 150 of them.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a problem then. I
Yeah.
would think.
So, I didn't really know how to handle that, other than I'd like to take a drive through and witness it, so I did that. I got permission.
Sure.
Drove through it, looked at all the cars, and I understand they have an application in with Bill McDonald,
McDonough, yes.
and that it's going to come through as a special permit to the zoning board, apparently, and that they will get the right to use it the way they're currently using it eventually.
Right, but they don't have that permission right now.
No, they don't.
So this is what I propose.
Okay.
And thank you very much for going out there, because I went and spoke to Bill McDonough about that, but I haven't had a chance to, I was in that area today, but I didn't make it quite there. It wouldn't be much for us to, when we go to approve these in front of the full council, to pull them out and give ourselves another 2 weeks on that before, because their permit doesn't expire yet. We can look into giving them an extension, see how long it will take, because I know that they're buying this property. I know that we've had a joint constituent concern in that area as well. Yes, and it doesn't really hold a lot of, it doesn't. So I have to reach out to him as well. But I think that that's what my recommendation would be. I'll speak with the president, maybe the acting president would like to chime in on that one.
Sure, so I think I'm intimately familiar with it. I got a call yesterday or the day before, and my issue is that they are currently conducting business on the lot without a permit, and we've had this problem, I believe, at that location before. They stood before this honorable body and told us they wouldn't do it, and here we are again with 150-ish cars, as witnessed by Councilor Conti. I haven't been down there to see it myself. Again, so my message is that, yes, we should find out from the city solicitor what to do, and I'm in full favor of waiting the 2 weeks to pull this one out. But I also think that we need to understand what the time frame is, and there's just an assumption that it's okay to continue to park cars on the lot that they don't have yet, or they don't own yet, nor do they have permission to. And with their application, it might have been a appropriate move to say that that's what their plan was. I don't remember looking at that. And seeing that in there, the only reason I'm aware of it is because I think the same person that called you, Counselor Conti, and you, Counselor Reynolds.
Mr. Governor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he didn't. I saw him
He was here.
at a meeting. And it's a concern. So we've got to do something about the existing problem while working through what the solution might be.
Ms. Reynolds?
And I would just jump on that, but the other thing is that it's really unfair to all of the other dealers that are doing it the right way. And this has been a problem before. I mean, they're nice enough people, they've been in business a really long time, but it is just totally unfair to those people that are playing by the rules. So I think we have to do something that puts them back to where the amount of cars they're only allotted in their license as it stands right now.
Okey-doke.
It's a different lot. Can I have the floor?
Of course you may.
Thank you.
It's not.
So, during the conversation, you triggered an old memory about when Courtesy Mitsubishi wanted to develop a parking lot across the street on West Winster. Does this ring a bell?
Yes, I remember it. Absolutely, I do.
And the planning department said, well, are you gonna do asphalt? Is it gonna be a groundwater recharge? Is there gonna be an oil separator for the vehicles? And it got to be a really big thing, And the car dealer was thinking, oh, look, these are brand-new cars, they're not leaking anything, can I park them on the dirt? And I was kind of sympathetic to him. This lot is all dirt. These cars are not brand-new. Of course, it's right next to state line scrap, but still, when they go to zoning for a permit, they're gonna be asked for a site plan review, and that issue of paving and past infractions is gonna come up, and I think they're gonna have some issues to straighten out in the zoning board before they come to the council. And that concludes my comments. Mr. Cooper wants the floor.
Mr. Cooper?
Thank you. I do remember that, Council Conti. I remember that they amended an existing permit to operate across the street, and it became, is it contiguous, is it not? We had this whole debate and discussion about it. But they were then going to put, that was, at that time, was temporary because they were going to put another building there. They were going to separate, and then they ended up moving to the other side of Route 1. But they have done that work in that parking lot. And even though it is right next to State Line Scrap, now Schnitzer Corporation, has spent an exorbitant amount of money to minimize the impact to the neighborhood and the environment, and I'm struggling with allowing that to happen there without them doing the right thing. And what the right thing is, I don't have the solution to right now, but I think the city solicitor should provide some guidance on that.
I appreciate that. I did meet with Bill McDonough yesterday with regards to this circumstance. I've met with him 3 times in the last 2 days about a variety of things. There have been multiple complaints registered. He has sent individuals down there. It is their opinion that they are in compliance. I did ask about vehicles in that location. They had a gate open and that was closed because, if I may, because they don't own this particular area and the cars aren't necessarily marked that they belong to them, there's a little bit of a gray area as to how we can enforce some things. So again, what I will do is we'll pass it out of committee. We will hold it out in front of the full council next week. I will go back, speak with Mr. McDonough. I will speak to the president so that I can have access to the city solicitor, and we'll manage it after I get some more information. Is that acceptable?
Yes, so you're gonna hold this one up?
I am. Well, I'm gonna vote because I can't remove it from what I read. Well, maybe I can. Maybe procedurally you could assist me with that.
Two comments. One is, in my opinion, that is a weak response to 100 and something cars parked in a lot that's owned by someone, when there's a city ordinance that says you can have one unregistered motor vehicle on a lot. So that's a weak response, and it has to be dealt with. In my opinion, I'm one of 10 right now. We need some resolution and solution to that. In terms of pulling it out, you could we friendly amend to take that one out, or should we just vote it out of committee and see what the outcome is and not pull that one out of the full council
Of the full,
vote?
that's exactly what my expectation was.
And then
is
they'll
that
stay in committee.
Exactly. That's what, I figured that we've read all of them out, voted out of the full committee. I'll talk to Linda on if there's appropriate language that we need to use or a motion we have to take just to manage that particular one. So.
But I think I remember that the motions that come to the council have to come out of the same way they came out of committee. That was rewinding me back to a couple of weeks ago.
Let's retract the last one.
Okay, we can.
If you withdraw your second, she retracts the last vote, you then second.
Yes.
We'll be fine.
Yeah.
So you retract state line scrap.
Okay.
You withdraw your second.
Right.
Now you ask for a second without state line scrap, and he seconds it.
Okay.
And we're good to go.
But I don't have to read all of this all over again. Thank you, heaven sakes.
Thank you.
So, would you like to retract your second?
I will withdraw my second, yes.
Thank you very much. And now
retract state line scrap.
I would like to retract State Line Auto Brokers Incorporated, 115 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass, for 6 customer parking spaces and 42 display spaces.
Call for a second on the motion.
Second.
Thank you, Cooper. All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. And then we have to, I have to make the motion again. I entertain a motion to approve the following applications for 2018 renewal Class 2 auto licenses from, and I can waive the reading on all of them with the exception of the State Line Auto Brokers.
That's correct. Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Ooh, we're learning some stuff tonight. This is. I'm just gonna say thank you, Jeremy,
This surprised
so
me.
much.
And they've got my business card, so you know who's going to get the call.
Mr. Delizio.
Yeah, I think the answer here is we're coming to an answer. And part of the problem is, as Mr. Cooper says, I think we have to send the right message. We've all received calls from residents as it relates to similar situations. They're doing it for one simple reason. We're not looking. We're not looking. So people are going to get away with what they, I've driven by it because I've also gotten concerns, but people are going to get away with what we allow them to get away with.
Exactly.
And I'm not advocating by any stretch that this body overextend our scope, but I think that, to Councilor Reynolds' point of all the businesses, and you read how many that are following the rules, that are doing it the right way, which, thank you, Councilor. That's it. I'm off my soapbox, but I think it's
well, because you advocate for not for us to not overextend, and they're overextending their business into a vacant lot.
Well, we still want to make sure that businesses are able to come in and, but they have to act appropriately.
Right.
You
may.
If I may, so Daniel over down the street at Lime Rock is doing it the right way. He wants 200 more cars, and so he knows he's got to cut down some trees. He knows he needs a site plan. He knows he's going to hire Tilton Engineering, and I went through with him exactly the steps he had to go through, and he was grateful to get the review, on how it all goes together, and I encouraged him. I said, "This is great. You're going to have to, you're going to make more money. This is wonderful." That's not what's happening at State Line Brokers. And Sarah's comment is really rings true, and I agree with Councilor Cooper completely, because we put poor Mr. Courtesy Motors through the ringer. And he was getting deliveries of cars, and he had a real problem because he didn't have a place to put all those cars. These people...
We're just doing it.
Yeah. I'm as upset about it as you are, but it will straighten itself out in the zoning board. And that concludes my comments.
Excellent.
Sorry, 2 last points, but, to that point though, Mr. Conti, we've scrutinized people who come up for the licenses, how much time are you gonna spend on site? What's your door look like,
You're a proper person.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing. So, the other thing, as it goes to Lime Rock, what I would suggest is introduce new business. Get for at least a study and recommendation for the rentals, if that's what he's looking to do.
That's an excellent idea.
This way here, you get that ball rolling, you're able to look at it, get the conversation started with the city solicitor. Which, who knows, it could encourage another industry type here in the city.
Might I interject?
Actually, yes, Mr. Blair.
I know I'm, old and decrepit and you see me under the counter.
Those were your words, not mine, so just so everyone knows.
It's
late, yeah.
Right. Well, you take a car into service at any of the dealerships in town. They supply your car, but they're a rental. Correct?
Yep, you're right.
Sign a rental agreement when you take that car in. So, I think, like you said, that should go before the city solicitor and find out if it's necessary to have a rental car if you're operating a used car lot or a new car facility, because they all do it. So, you know that thing opening up a can of worms? You got all your new car dealerships on Route 1 do it, 1A. They all have rental cars that they rent.
That is true.
Mr. Conti.
So to illustrate your point, it's just a little story because it's 9 o'clock at night and it's late.
Hope it's short.
So I've got an old Lexus that I drive, a 2003 Lexus. I took it in for the 105,000-mile tune-up. I had Sharon, the Lexus dealership in Sharon. They put me into a 2017 RX 350 Rocket.
That's what you want to buy it.
For the weekend. For the weekend. It's like going from an antique Model A to a F-15 fighter jet. And the agreement, Peter, was 4 pages long that I had to sign.
Yeah,
you sign away your life.
When you bring a new car back for service, or a used car back for service,
They're giving
and they give you a car, you sign a rental agreement. So it's being done, whether or not it requires a special license. On the 18 years I've been here, I've never seen a license go through license committee for
Hold on.
rental.
Wait, because he still has the floor. All of a sudden, I'm exercising my chairperson rights. Look at that. Have you completed your comments, Councilor Blair?
Certainly.
Thank you. Councilor Conti.
So I think he actually wants to bring in a franchise like Enterprise Auto, like bring in a Alamo rental or that. So he's thinking of doing it that way. So that he has a whole lot of rental cars that are just exclusively for rental, like Alamo.
Maybe it requires a license.
We're going to find out because I'm going to take Jay's.
We've never had that come before us. I assume he's going to have he's got to have a license to do business.
So as we discussed earlier, as Acting President Cooper said, I'm happy to send an email to the council president to see that, to forward information on to the city solicitor, and she can give us an interpretation of that. Mr. Cooper, did you have any more to add?
No, I think that's it. I think
Okay.
we
So we'll start there. I can respond through Linda if you would like, if it's something that requires new business to be introduced, then we will be aware of those kinds of things
So
at that point.
I was going to follow Council Delicia's recommendation and write a new business by Thursday.
Sure.
Okay.
So I guess my recommendation would be go right ahead and write your new business. If we need it, great. If we don't, fine.
Right, you can always reject it. Right.
Terrific. Now, can I move for a vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. I entertain a motion to approve.
Yeah.
I entertain a motion to approve the following 2018 renewal Class 1 auto license from Courtesy Auto Group doing business as Courtesy Kia Mitsubishi 795 Newport Avenue, Attleboro, Mass. for 40 customer parking spaces and 195 display spaces.
Second.
Thank you. Pretty self-explanatory. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Oh, sorry. I entertain a motion to approve the following 2018 renewal Class 1 auto license from Courtesy Auto Group doing business as Courtesy Kia Mitsubishi, 11 and 16 Scott Street, Attleboro, Mass. for 34 customer parking spaces and 172 display spaces.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Conti. Again, pretty self-explanatory. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. I entertain a motion to approve the following 2018 renewal Class 2 auto licenses. Wait a second. Yes. 100% Auto Wholesalers LP, 21 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass. For 10 customer parking spaces, 48 display spaces. Bristol County Auto Sales LLC, 227 Pine Street, Attleboro, Mass. For 10 customer parking spaces and 10 display spaces. Cam's Auto Service, doing business as Paris Auto Body, 21 Chartier Street, Attleboro, Mass. For 9 customer parking spaces and 20 display spaces. East Coast Auto Sales, 24 Rice Street, Attleboro, Mass. For 14 customer parking spaces and 40 display spaces. Joe and Mary's Incorporated Gas Plus, 80 Pleasant Street, Attleboro, Mass. For 10 customer parking spaces and 24 display spaces. South Attleboro Auto Sales Incorporated, 411 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass. For 10 customer parking spaces and 30 display spaces.
Second.
They were all fine.
Good.
Excellent. Move for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Rick. Okay. I entertain a motion to approve the application for a 2018 renewal automatic amusement device license from Demoulas Supermarkets Incorporated, Market Basket, 1200 Newport Avenue, Mass. For 1 merry-go-round and 1 truck for weekdays only.
Second.
Thank you very much. They're right outside. Children enjoy them.
It's the small,
It's the little guys right outside. Any additional comments?
Traffic there already.
Any additional comments, concerns, problems? I'll move for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. The motion passes. I entertain a motion to approve the application for a 2018 renewal automatic amusement coin-op license from CEC Entertainment Incorporated, Chuck E. Cheese, number 464, 287 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass. For 12 video games and 53 skilled kiddie rides for weekdays only.
Second.
Thank you very much. I call that, personally, Chuck E. Cheese is wonderful, and I'm glad they have a thriving business. My son, when he was little, absolutely adored it. His sisters hated it and couldn't understand why. The music's good, the food is good. He's 7 years old, all super excited. Parent purgatory, but everything's all in order there, so. Councilor Conti.
Yes, I've never been in Chuck E. Cheese, but
Consider yourself blessed.
I just want to make a comment publicly that the people that I visited on Washington Street in South Attleboro were all complimentary about Councilor Denley's prior visits.
Yeah.
And that speaks volumes to the council. When you can make a positive impression with a business, I think this is very, very positive. The second thing I wanted to say was I'm sure future Councilor Dolan now appreciates that we took care of this before she took her position, because now it's done, and then she doesn't have to worry about it.
Well, there's that one little number that we had
Oh, that's right. She's going to have
but she doesn't have to worry.
Right,
Yeah,
progress, right.
we'll walk her through it. We're a
we'll
good
work her
committee.
through it,
It'll
right.
be fine. Any questions, concerns, or problems?
Nope.
I move for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. That concludes license for this evening. So I call for adjournment at 9:36. All those in favor? Aye. And we are adjourned at 9:36.
So I'd like to call the Capital Improvement City Development Committee to order at 9:36. Sitting on my committee, Councilor Cooper, Councilor Reynolds, and Councilor Conti. I watched your meeting last night from New Hampshire while I was in school, and I approved of what you did, and thank you for sitting in my absence. And I've thought about this resolution all week, because I noted with interest that you didn't bring it out, and I'm kind of happy that you didn't, because if there's any level of uncomfortable with this, then we need to discuss it. And this is the time to do that. So I'll read it really quick, just to get it into the record, because I think this is the last we're ever going to hear of it, but I'll read it out. From the docket of July 18, 2017, I move to adopt the following resolution. A vote of the City Council of the City of Attleboro on the Capital Improvements Program fiscal years 2018 and 2022. Whereas the City of Attleboro, the city's charter in section 6.3D delineates actions to be taken annually on the Capital Improvement Program, CIP, by the Municipal Council, and whereas the City Municipal Council Capital Improvement City Development Committee received said plan in August 2017, a historically significant late delivery, and whereas the City's Municipal Council held a public hearing for the plan on October 10th, 2017, during which no member of the public voiced opinions, And whereas the City of Municipal Council has witnessed a lack of reinvestment in capital has and will lead to catastrophic failures. And whereas the intent of the capital improvement plan is a critical integration to a financial plan has failed, being delivered after the fiscal year 17 budget was approved by default, the city reserves a right to fund, if any, the CIP on a case-by-case basis. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Attleboro Municipal Council hereby neither approves or disapproves capital improvement program for fiscal years 2018-2022. The problem with this motion is that we can only make a motion to approve a plan. We cannot make a motion to approve or disapprove. So what I was thinking was two things, is that I would recommend that we don't vote it out of committee, so that it doesn't go to the council, but it would in fact be a record of what came into the committee, and that the committee decided not to approve it, to pass it on to the council. And so I was a little upset earlier this year when we didn't do that for the budget, because I thought that there were statements that we wanted to make about the budget, and I'll recognize you in a minute, and that they never really got entered into historical record, because there was never a resolution to lay down what we thought about that budget. In this case, it gives us an opportunity to lay down how we feel about what happened this year with this budget, to identify the fact that the plan is great, the process is flawed, and that it doesn't get a resolution this year because the timing is all off. You know, the purpose is, the idea is to get this by February 1st, so they can review it and see what the impact is on the budget, to see whether or not the budget is allocated properly to take care of the capital improvements or not. So what I'm going to recommend is that we decide not to vote this out of committee and let it die right here and now. I'd like additional comments. Yes, Councilor Cooper.
Thank you. So I'm not necessarily in full agreement of not letting the council vote on it. Frank, I did speak with him last week about it. I talked to him this week about it. In fact, today, and I'll paraphrase for him. It was his suggestion that we voted out of committee tonight and get it before the full council, and he would have some sort of correspondence with you about what he felt needed to be changed. And there were three things that, from my conversation with him, that he felt needed to be changed. One, being the budget. You say the budget passed by default. He's of the opinion that it didn't pass by default. It passed according to state law. So that's a little discrepancy in the language. He felt that, again, which you mentioned already, that the council has to approve it, has to present it in the affirmative and then vote either up or down. And then his comment was also relative to the fact that there was the opportunity for an earlier public hearing offered, but wasn't accepted. So he wanted to make sure that those, it was my understanding from my discussion with him, and again, I'm paraphrasing for him, and I don't want to speak for him, but I want to make sure that you understand what his conversation was to me. And I think that there's no reason why we couldn't vote it out the way you have it written there, and then have some discussion at the full council meeting to give the full council the opportunity to vote the message that you have crafted with some input from him in committee and other councilors. So that's Frank's paraphrase and my position on the capital improvements message this year.
So the mention of the public hearing of the plan on October 10th was only to isolate the fact that no member of the public came out to have an opinion. So I'd like to change the last whereas to read, the intent of the CIP as a critical integration to a financial plan has failed, being delivered after fiscal year 18 budget was approved by state law. The city reserves the right to fund, if any, of the CIP on a case-by-case basis. And then the last line, the Attleboro Municipal Council hereby approves the capital improvement plan, so that we don't have that here, approve or disapprove. So with those changes, I'll call for a second to the motion.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Reynolds.
So, just a point of order, Councilor Conti. perhaps just read the whole thing?
I will.
As a motion, and then second it, because initially you said you weren't going to, and I don't want there to be
well,
any confusion.
I'll do that. I move to adopt the following resolution. A vote of the City Council of the City of Attleboro on the Capital Improvements Program fiscal years 2018-2022. Whereas the City of Attleboro, the city charter, in section 6-3D delineates actions to be taken annually on the capital improvement CIP by the municipal council, and whereas the city's municipal council capital improvement city development committee received said plan in August 2017, a historically significant late delivery, and whereas the city's municipal council held a public hearing on the plan on October 10, 2017, during which no member of the public voiced opinions, and whereas the city's municipal council has witnessed the lack of reinvestment in capital has and will lead to catastrophic failures, and whereas the intent of the CIP as a critical integration to a financial plan has failed, being delivered after the fiscal year 18 budget was approved by state law, the city reserves the right to fund, if any, capital improvements on a case-by-case basis. Now be it therefore resolved that the Attleboro Municipal Council hereby approves the capital improvement program for fiscal years 2018-2022.
Second.
Thank you. So the motion's in order. Any further discussion? Yes, Jay?
Thanks. I have some concerns with the wording of that resolution. It's, we failed, or this failed, that failed, this failed, but there's no resolution. What are we resolving? I think when we talk about no one of the public came down, well, in fairness, and you usually do a fantastic job with the capital improvements, but we didn't have an opportunity to hear from the department heads so they could talk to us about this plan. In my estimation, this plan is probably one of the most crucial planning tools that we have as counselors. I think, last week we talked about, 2 weeks ago, we talked about the rifles that the police department needed. That was part of the capital improvement plan. This helps us to be able to really have an understanding of what is going to come down the pipe, when it very well may come down the pipe, so we can plan better. We did get it in June. Absolutely right. It's historically later than we've ever gotten it, but we still had it 5 months ago, where I think that we could have, where in the past, like last year, when we did the field trips, and I understand what you said previously, that only a handful of us went, but it was powerful. It was powerful to stand on that library roof, to have an understanding that, okay, we might not know when, but this is coming down. We stood on the roof of the Bartek Center, same sort of thing. So if we're gonna put fail, 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 because anyone can point out what's broken. We're elected and we're here to talk about how do we fix it. So that would be my suggestion.
And I like it.
Thank you.
Councilor Blaze?
It is getting late, you agreed with me.
I thought you had the video.
Put that in a minute.
No, I like your suggestion. I do. And I want you to think about how what we can put in there to make it positive.
Because we can do that next.
I mean, we could say we could use this plan for next February 1's deadline, because not much is going to change between now and February 1st. So by just changing the dates on the plan, we have next year's plan.
Right.
Which means the next council can start right away on a capital improvement plan and start the tours and the visits, and so maybe that should be in here.
And if I may, that's gonna be a lot for the new councilors to.
Yeah, there's 3 councilors that need to learn what's in that book.
Right, and and they all seem very bright, eager to go, but it's a lot.
Yep, it is a lot.
So I'll help any way I can.
Well, let's get it out of the committee in this form.
Sure.
And let's recraft it on the council floor. How's that sound?
Exactly.
Good.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That concludes the Business and Capital Improvement City Development Committee as written before the council. I move for an adjournment at 9:50.
Second.
Motion's in order, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. Just a friendly reminder from Linda, don't forget to leave your minutes for her. And Peter, I need you to sign one quick thing.
Okay.
Okay.
And Vice President Cooper, great job tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was good.